Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Dakota, what's happening, brother? How are you? Good to see you.
What's up, man?
You wrote a book, man.
I did with Rob O'Neill.
The Way Forward.
Yeah.
Master life's toughest battles and create your lasting legacy. What drove you to this?
You know, like I think that there was like a point in my life to where I kind of just, kind of put it all together, like wanting to help people. You know, like the way forward. There's always a way forward. You know, my life's been such a shit show, so many ways, and obviously Rob's has too. That was one thing we could relate on. Is like, we both came from two different places, did two different things, but like, there's always a way forward. Focusing on what matters. Was
there a time in your life where you didn't think there was a way forward? Where you?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote about that in my first book about, a time that I just didn't know if there was a way forward. But what I learned is like, when you don't see a way forward, it's because your purpose is yourself and it's not other things, right? People that are lost, or I felt like when I'm lost is when I'm too busy focusing on things for me, and my purpose is me, and it's not like the things that are around me, the things that matter.
Like in what way? What do you mean?
Like my kids, like my friends, my circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like doing something bigger than me, like focusing on something that's bigger than just, trying to survive. Like, okay, well, I'm going to go pay my bills. Well, that's not really a great purpose, right?
Right.
But finding something bigger that you could believe in, like, being a firefighter or being a good dad, or, just trying to have goals of fitness or start a company or all those things, right?
So did you feel like at one point in time where you were only thinking about yourself and you didn't see there was any point to it all? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, I got out of the Marine Corps and, I got out and it was all about me, right? It's like, I served this country. This country owes me now. Because look, when you're in the military, the whole time you're told you're a hero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, everybody's just, you're just greater people, or all these things. You sacrifice for this country. This country owes you. And I hate that word owes, right? Like owes. The only thing we owe is the bank. But, that was where I was at. And I was walking around blaming all my problems on, I'm drinking all the time. I wasn't an alcoholic, but just drinking all the time, trying to, overcome the pain of, the stuff that I'd seen, the things that didn't make sense. And then, when you would try to question me or hold me accountable, I'd be like, well, you didn't go through what I went through. Right. And so how are you going to argue it? And I was surrounded by that. I was the victim. I made myself the victim of life. And, at that point was where I got the lowest, right? Like I just couldn't, because at some point, like they're going to try to help you. Like that's the great thing about the world is people are going to help you. People want to help, but they can only help you so far. Like they're not going to drown with you,
mm-hmm.
especially when you're not choosing to get better. And that was where I was at, like just drinking all the time, I was an asshole. Like, I mean, I'm still an asshole, but just a different way. I was an asshole and just, blaming the world for my problems when really I was the problem. I just didn't have anything bigger than me. And I would surround myself by people who wanted to coddle me, right? Like, oh, Dakota, what you've gone through, you deserve, it's okay. This is normal for what you've gone through. And it's like, no. Like, that's what America is about, is the comeback story, right? Like everybody's going to go through their problems. Everybody's going to have their lumps, but America, they want the comeback story,
What was it that made you turn around? Like, did you have a moment? Is it something you read? Is it something you learned?
No, so I was living at my dad's house. I was living with my dad. My dad's just an incredible man. And one night I was out drinking somewhere, and I was driving home on this road, and I just seen like the pain I was causing the people around me, right? Like, my dad was never going to kick me out of the house, but I just seen like the disappointment, right? Like the disappointment in people that I was bringing. And I was driving down the road one night, and I just said, look, this is it. Like, I'm done. I pulled over at my buddy's shop. He had a welding shop, and because I knew that I didn't want to inconvenience anybody to have to, well, where's he at? This huge search. I knew he would be in at 6 to 8 in the morning. He comes in every day. I pulled over and parked right in front of the bay door and pulled my gun out, and I stuck it to my head and squeezed the trigger. And somebody had unloaded that gun. I'd shot it that day, actually. I'd shot this Glock 40 that day. And it was the loudest click I've ever heard in my life, and probably the quickest sobering thing that I've ever seen.
Holy shit.
And so I sat there and I just told myself that if I'm going to continue to live life like I am and waste it, then I know how to load this gun. I need to just rack it back and get it over with. But I just made this deal with myself that if I'm going to put the car in drive and go home, that like this is not an option ever again. And God gave me a different outcome for me, and I drove home. And ever since then, I mean, look, I think we all go through moments where we don't know. There's always these moments where we don't know if we can get out of it, right? Like, that's normal.
Yeah.
But for that to stay that way is not normal, right? And that was, I like slowed up on drinking. I didn't stop, obviously. I didn't really slow up as where I needed to be until I had my child. But I got a lot better, right? I started surrounding myself with different people who weren't going to buy in and support my bullshit,
So that moment when the gun went click, like in your mind, is there like a clear change between before that moment and after that moment? Was there like was it like a realization? Was just like you felt like you got a second chance at life? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, I've been in so many situations where I was supposed to die, or I thought there's been at least 5 or 6 situations where it wasn't that I thought I was going to die, it was that I knew I was going to die. And
the combat situations?
The combat situations, right? It's a totally different experience, though. This one was like why? And I think at that moment I realized that I was only feeling sorry for myself, because if my teammates, if losing my teammates, it sucks. Like, it still sucks. Like, I sometimes I don't even know if I have even came to the realization that I'll never see my guys again. And I don't know why. It's kind of weird, but, I don't know why. But I think that, I just realized that I need to live a life. If I don't want to do it for myself, then I need to live a life that's worthy of their sacrifices, right? Like, how stupid is it? How selfish of me? Someone who has seen what the cost of freedom is, or someone who has seen the sacrifices that people have gave who don't get it tomorrow. They gave their today so that we can have it tomorrow. And how selfish of it is for me to walk around and be a drunk asshole, and that's the representation that I'm going to represent their sacrifices. Like, it's just not right. And that was at that moment that all that started to come together, that no, I just feel sorry for myself, not them. They don't feel anything. So I'm feeling sorry for myself, and as I'm doing that, I'm wasting days that I guarantee they wish they had.
Yeah. It's such a common problem with veterans. I mean, I believe at one point in time, I don't know what the status is now, but at one point in time, more veterans had died by suicide in Afghanistan than had died from combat.
Yeah, I mean, I've lost more guys since being home to suicide than I ever lost in combat.
What is let's see what the number is. See if you can find there. I think just Google more veterans die from suicide than combat, because I think that was what they were trying to drill into people, is that asking people to go over there and fight and to see the horrors that they see, and to see friends die and loved ones die, and then ask them to come back and have life just be normal. Look at this. 4 times as many troops and vets have died by suicide as in combat.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So this is not an uncommon problem. It's a giant problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
I don't know what kind of training they give you when you're about to leave the military or when you're returning from combat. But do they try to give you any sort of an understanding of how to cope with this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's obviously gotten a lot better, right? I mean, it was more of the tough love. I mean, the more that mental health is accepted. I mean, to be honest, I mean, as men, 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't something. It was looked at as weak, right?
You didn't hear a lot about it. It seems like somewhere along the line, I mean, I don't know what the statistics show, but it seems like somewhere along the line, it became way more common to know people that kill themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I didn't know about it until obviously the military, right? I mean, I went in at 17, and but no, there wasn't a lot of talk about it, and you know, the more we were in combat, the more you started to see it, right? And yeah, I mean, this thing of PTSD, but I mean, PTSD is something that the world suffers from. It's not something that's only to veterans, right?
But don't you think the veterans have it in a larger experience if you experience combat? I mean, the amount that they have, I mean, so many guys that I know like yourself or many of my other friends that are veterans, they just have memories that they can't shake.
I think that you want to talk about the group of people that have it the worst is our first responders.
Cops, EMTs.
Firefighters,
Yep.
EMTs.
Yep.
The stuff that I've seen as being a firefighter, sometimes like combat it's no comparison.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, and over there the mindset's different, right? Like, I mean, most of the people that we were part of, like, we were there to fight, right? So it's almost like, you know, watching someone in the octagon fight versus watching someone on a street fight, you know, get jumped, right? It's a different ball game, and you know, everybody's suffering, right? I mean, and so I think that like the mental health aspect, yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing. But I also think that the mindset, the approach that we take on it is important as well, right? Like I don't need to be coddled, right? Like, okay, I have PTSD, check. But that doesn't give me like a card to blame, well, why I'm an alcoholic or why I'm not getting help or why I hit my wife or why I'm in fights. You know what I mean? Like, well, let's get help. Like let's get help and let's want to get better. You know, there's just a fine line of using it as an excuse versus as what's real on it, right? And no one can identify that, but it's like at some point you have to look in the mirror and look, Jocko talks about it, extreme ownership, right? You have to look in the mirror, and at the point that you can take responsibility for your actions, you can then change them. So
when you think about PTSD and you think about the effect that it has on you, is being a firefighter, does it compound all of the PTSD that you experience as a combat veteran? I mean, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like this was a conversation I was having this morning. I don't know. Like, for me, I've changed my mindset. For me, yeah, I mean, there are some stuff that bothers me. I mean, obviously, look, every time it changes you, or for me it does. But now I look at it like when I come in and I'm there when somebody, you know, passes away. I look at it as an honor, right? Like I got to share that moment with them, and as long as I'm doing whatever I can to make that moment better for them, then that's all I can do, right? And I'll do whatever it takes to make that moment better. But at some point, we really have no control of anything in life.
We have some control, right? But yeah, those kind of experiences, like the experience of seeing someone die, for a lot of people, it doesn't just change you, but it makes you, I don't know what the best way to say it is, but you're just devastated by it. And every time it happens, it becomes compounded. It's more and more and more. And is there, like, one of the things that I've thought about a lot with police officers, because I feel like, look, there's bad cops. We all know there's bad cops, just like there's bad everything else in life. But I think that most cops are the experiences that they have in situations where their life is threatened, situations where they pull people over, they have no idea if this person has a gun, if this person's a criminal. They just don't know. There's so many moments in their life where I'm sure they've seen all the YouTube videos that I've seen,
Yep.
Where cops get shot at and cops get killed, run over by cars, and all that crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like that has got to be always chipping at your mental well-being.
Yeah, I mean, you're always living in that sense of that fight, right? That fight or flight. And yeah, I mean, look, the respect I have for cops is just, it's astronomical, right? Like, being on scenes and seeing, like, look, we're as firefighter, we're kind of like, the way I'll describe it is cops are kind of like the dad of the country. When they show up, like, nobody's happy. Like, there's never a time that people are like, like somebody's going to be mad, right?
Yeah, somebody's going to be mad.
Somebody's mad. When the firefighters show up, we're kind of like the cool uncles. You know what I mean? Like, we really can't, what are we going to do wrong, right?
You're there to help.
Yeah, and then, when EMS shows up, they're kind of like the moms, right? Like, they're the caring, they're going to fix it, the empathy's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that all three don't have empathy. I'm just saying that they all have to hold themselves in a different way because they're all there for a different role.
Right.
And, being a cop, look, those guys are just, they're incredible because they could go from coming over and miss whoever, Miss Nancy or whatever, Miss Smith, she's having, she might think somebody's at her house or, maybe the next door neighbor's a little too loud and, he's got to handle it one way. And then the next person that he pulls over, he could walk up to a car. They could walk up to a car and could pull a gun and shoot him.
Yeah.
And they have to be ready for everything.
Right.
And, those guys are just, they're a different, they have to live a different life,
A totally different life than everybody else. And we expect them to just be able to do it. And be able to handle it.
And the factor we don't take into account, is the humanization factor, right? Like, I mean, are you always on when you're having a bad day? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like their kid could have been late from school. They could have a sick kid. They could be arguing with their wife.
Sure.
I mean, like, or husband or whatever, right? And we don't ever look at that and say, well, what did they just go through? What's going on there? Like, they literally show up to fix everybody else's problems. While they have to deal with their own. Yeah. And they're scrutinized on how they do it.
Not just scrutinized, but if they fuck up, it ruins their entire life.
Yeah. Everything's on the line.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very difficult job, and I don't think it gets nearly the respect that it deserves. And all we concentrate on is the ones that suck, the cops that suck at their job, or the cops that are assholes, or the cops that are abusive, and that's what we think about. We think about cops that plant evidence, cops that shoot people unnecessarily. That's all we think about. Because
they're the only ones that get attention.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're the only ones you see. I mean, it's kind of like everything. Like you only see the bad ones. The media loves to focus on the bad ones because guess what? Hate and fear makes money. I truly believe that, look, and love will go further than hate and fear. Love will 100% go further, right? But hate and fear, think about any time you feel fear or you hate, that was put into you by somebody else 90% of the time. Like, look at the stuff we're scared of. What, because somebody told us? Right? Because, you know what I mean? It's like...
Like what kind of stuff you mean?
I mean, like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I'll get anxiety about, just like right now, like, let's go pull our... how about this? Toilet paper.
You get anxiety about toilet
No, I'm
paper?
saying like no. I'm saying like no. I'm saying like whenever the pandemic hit,
Right.
you know, it's contagious, right? Like freaking out, fear is contagious. Somebody's seen somebody go buy toilet paper, and it's like the next thing you know, toilet paper's all out, right? Like all these things are contagious, and it's
Right.
like fear sells. Fear. I mean, what? Like if you thought about it, what was toilet paper going to do for you in this, right? And at the end of the day, like we could live without toilet paper. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not a survival instinct.
I think what happened during the pandemic was people were tested in a way that they had never been tested before. Like we had never experienced a moment in our life where there was a real fear that society was going to be completely disrupted and that a disease was going to ravage everybody. And even though it turned out to be a terrible disease, it wasn't nearly as bad as what we were fearful of. What we were fearful of was some kind of plague that would just wipe everybody
sure.
out. And that, I think that initial mindset that people had was very difficult to shake. Even now that, COVID, this new variant, this Omicron, is not nearly as dangerous. It's much more contagious, but not nearly as deadly. There's some people that still want to treat it like it's the thing that's going to kill everybody. They still want to have this sort of same mindset because that's the initial mindset they had.
Yeah.
So I think when people were stockpiling toilet paper and stockpiling food, there was a fear mindset, a mindset of the unknown that gripped people that a lot of folks are just not willing to let go of.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole thing that I don't understand. You know what I mean?
Well,
But we're
you've
all at different-
experienced a lot of like real danger and real life-threatening situations. You've seen people, you've taken lives, you've seen people's lives leave their body. The level, that's the thing one of the things that I truly appreciate about veterans is you don't get to do what they do unless you've experienced massive amounts of adversity.
Yeah.
Just getting through, if you're talking about someone who's a SEAL, just getting through buds. I mean, what fucking percentage of human beings that walk around could do that? Very few. Very few.
Not many.
They're different humans, and it's because they've overcome adversity. And for some people, any kind of thing that throws their regular routine off track will fuck them up. Hey, Jamie, can you tell Jeff to bring in the coffee and cups of water too? There's no cups for the water.
Yeah, I mean, but don't you think that like, the people who haven't, I mean, the only way, you don't get exposed to adversity is by fear.
Yeah.
Right. And so again,
Yeah.
whatever's holding you back from doing what you want to do or trying things or experiencing things,
Yeah.
it's never as bad. I mean, obviously there are some things that are as bad, but most of the time, you've been so worried about something and it's not really as bad as you thought it was.
Right.
Right.
Most of the time. Yeah.
And so that's my thing is like, why were you fearful of it? Right. Like I don't think that we were born with fear. I mean, I think we were born with like natural survivability and instinct. Right. But I don't think you're definitely not born with hate.
Right. Yeah, you're definitely not born with hate. I think some people are born. I think, unfortunately, I'm just guessing. I'm not really a psychologist, but I think, unfortunately, there's a certain level of fear and anxiety I think kids do adopt rather from their parents. I think there's some of it might even be in their genes. People that are neurotic and weirded out, maybe they're modeling their parents. Maybe they're paying attention to how their parents handle things and they handle things similarly.
For sure.
Or maybe it's passed down. I think there's a lot of shit that's passed down to people. I really do. Just like there's a lot of positive traits that get passed down to people. I think there's a lot of negative ones too, unfortunately. And I think, your children learn in many ways, whether it's through genes or whether it's through experience. They learn in many ways through the way the parents handle stuff.
But do you think that that's in your DNA, or do you think that that's because that's how you've seen it done, right? Like
Could be both.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it could be both, but I also think it's like I think you need some challenges. Some of my favorite people besides veterans are jiu-jitsu people. And one of the reasons why is because they experience so much adversity. Like, and I mean, like, it's safe. It's, it's all controlled. It's in a controlled environment. But in that moment, when someone's trying to strangle you and you're literally fighting for your life, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel controlled. Someone's got your back, and that forearm goes underneath your neck, and you're like, oh, shit. Like, the reality is you're playing a game, and that game is I'm going to kill you with my bare hands. And when that guy gets your back and gets your neck, he just killed you. And then you tap, and you go again. But even though you survive, and even though it's safe, it's a way of recreating. It's like a facsimile, It's like a reasonable version of a life or death scenario that gets to play out all the time. Most of the time it's very peaceful. Most of the time it's fun. You slap hands. It's all good. But there's moments in these struggles where you're out of breath, and then all of a sudden this guy mounts you and you're like, oh, fuck. Like, those moments, most people never experience that thing where you have to push because you're going to escape or you're going to submit. And having moments in your life where you're really tested gets you to understand who you are, gets you to understand where your character lies, gets you to understand what your thresholds are, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, lets you strengthen those weaknesses in a very real, usable way. I think most people, they don't experience enough difficult scenarios in their life. And one of the things that I love most about jiu-jitsu is you could just take a regular person and you could transform them. And through this difficult game that you're playing, you can change the way you interface with reality. You'll have more character. You'll have more ability to withstand difficult situations. They'll be more normal for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, you until you've gone through it, I call it the lens of life. Your lens gets shaped on what to focus on by what you've seen through it, right? And kind of prioritizing. Football was that for me. I mean, I don't roll enough, but like I do jiu-jitsu, but like, football was that for me growing up. It was about getting hit and about having to get back up, right? About someone stopping you. I mean, it was a team sport. It was you're relying on other people to help protect you. You're not going to win a football game by yourself. It was kind of like that about lose 5 yards and then have to get back up and try to get it again. That was what it was for me growing up. That was my contact sport about, look, you can look over and see what guys are gonna rock your bell, right? And that was kind of what it was for me. Look, I love jiu-jitsu too. I mean, jiu-jitsu is exactly what you're talking about. I mean, there's nothing more nerve-wracking than someone being on top of you and you can't breathe, right? Like, and because at that point they have control of you. At that point, they're deciding your fate. Yeah. I mean, we could roll jiu-jitsu, and if they get their arm around your neck, I mean, they get to decide if they let go.
Yeah.
And it's a real vulnerability and test of you being there, right? I mean, the more experience you have in adversity and tough times and coming out of it and trying to figure out, and I think that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is you roll and then you try to figure out, okay, so obviously when you have to tap, that was not where you wanted to be.
Right. How'd you get there?
How did I get there? Right? Like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
And isn't there so much to be said about that? Like, what if we did that in life? Like, check, I got here, I messed up. But the problem is in life now, or the way the world is now, that you can't go back. Like, you can't say, oh, well, I did the best I could right there. I wouldn't do it again, and this is how I would fix it. Because now, like, the world just doesn't accept it. Like, it's almost like the haha gotcha, right? Like, it is just, to apologize at this day and age, like, means you're done. Like, it's almost like apologies are it just means it's going to be brought up and held against you forever. It's like you just admitted to what they were right about. And it's like, how does that make sense? Like, how do you get better from not messing up? Like, how do you get better from, I mean, I mess up every single day, and I just apologize. And I mean it. I mean it when I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to hurt anybody.
People would say at a certain point in time, if you keep apologizing for the same thing, you're just getting away with apologizing. You're not fixing yourself, right?
But that's the difference, right? Is that's one thing, but it's a difference for me to just apologize when I'm sorry.
Right.
Like hey, sorry, I did, this is how I didn't understand how this made you feel, or I didn't mean to do that. Like,
it's just being honest.
it's just
is what
being,
it is.
it's just being honest.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things for a person. What I was getting at with the jiu-jitsu analogy is that the difficulty is it transfers into your life and it can enhance you. But it seems like the difficulty of combat is way more intense and way more insane, and obviously way more intense, way more insane, but way more difficult to overcome and to learn things from. It's like, it seems like for a lot of the combat veterans that I talk to, their experiences are kind of like burned in their brain in some way, where it's not like I'm sure they're stronger because of the adversity they've been through, but also some of it is too much, and it just leaves them shooken.
Yeah.
They used to call it shell shock.
Yeah.
Remember? I mean, that's what they used to call it before it was PTSD. When troops were coming back from Vietnam, they called them fucking shell shocked.
And I think that was me for a long time, for sure. That was me for a long time. Like,
did you get counseling for that? Did you how did you?
I went to Mexico.
What was in Mexico?
I went down and I did ibogaine.
Oh. Did we talk about that the first time you were on the podcast?
No, I think I did it afterwards.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But yeah, no, I went to.
How was that?
It gave me my life back. It gave me my life back. Like, I went down and I just got to the end. And I talked about it in this book. I was going through my divorce. I did. You talk about not knowing what was next. Literally, I was melting down from the inside. And finally, like, one of my friends looked at me and he's like, hey, I just went and did this. This is the date you're going. You need to go do this. And it was at that point, like, I grew up in Kentucky, and I grew up with weed is bad, right? All this, right? You know what I mean? And for me, it was just such a, to think that I was going to go do psychedelics.
Right.
It was just like it was like a moral thing for me, right? It was a moral dilemma.
Yeah.
And, but it was all I had left, and I knew that for my daughters, I needed to do something.
Can you describe the experience?
Yeah, I went down and
where'd you go?
I flew into San Diego, and then we just went across the border somewhere.
It was like close to Tijuana.
The south of that, like, started with an E.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where it was, but went down there and took the ibogaine at like 8 p.m. at night on Friday, and I kicked in like an hour later, and it was like I was walking through this like gloomy city. I was kind of like walking through a gloomy city, like overcast. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, I went into this one room, and it was like, I could see the street signs and everything. Like, I went in this one room, and I walked out on this stage, and there was like all these people in this room, and it was like they were going by, like, like those old slideshows, like they're just spinning by, and I was seeing these people, and I was in there, and I just felt this like everybody was disappointed in me. And like, I see all these people, and I just felt like all this disappointment. I was like running around, like going up to people, like, why, like, what did I do? What can I fix? Like, how can I fix this? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm sorry. And it was like all these people that I just, people in my life, like, I could see their faces, people in my life that I've tried so hard to be good enough for, and you ain't gonna be good enough for them, right? And so I left that room. I was in there for a few hours, and I left that room, and then I was walking through the town, and I would go up and I would look at these like these fuel gauges. I could see these fuel gauges, and they were like, it had E for empty, E for empty, and then F meant like finished, and everything was like this far from finished. It was like I never finished anything. And then I seen this like beautiful ball of light, and I went to it, and in it was like my daughters playing, and I just felt like so much peace. And then there was like obviously like different moments of, I never forget this one moment in it. I just like, I almost like, oh, cause I mean, you could see, I mean, I could like open my eyes. I mean, it was really blurry, but like I was present. Right. And, I was going to just ask the doctor, like, I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. Like, I can't do this. And, I knew that he was going to say, there's nothing I can do about it. So I stayed there, and I just remember it breaking my ego. I remember focusing on my ego. I remember like fighting it, just realizing that all this was ego, that my ego just, the best way to describe it was like, it didn't make me like, you know, like when you drink, like you kind of feel numb. This was like my soul. Like, it was like my soul had gone through a workout, like a workout on it, right? Like just an ass kicking workout. And, it just broke my ego, you know, like it just showed me so much about my ego. And there was just, I just remember like at one point I was like, I don't care. I don't even care anymore. I don't care what people think. I don't care. Like I'm not going to live by what people think. I remember just all I could just say back and forth was, I don't care. I don't care. I don't
This
care.
is why you were tripping?
While I was tripping. And so I was on it until from 8 p.m. on Friday night, and I came out of it at like 2 or 3 p.m. on Saturday.
Wow.
And I came out of it and I was mad. The guy that sent me there, I was so mad at. I was like,
Why?
I didn't need this. I was like, I didn't need to feel like this. I felt terrible.
Why are you mad at him?
Well, because I was like, you told me this is going to help me, and I didn't need to see all my problems, right? It kind of like just brought my problems out and made me look at them and realize that I need to do something to change these. And
so why would you be mad at him then?
Well, I was mad because he sent me there, and I thought he was going to help me, and I felt like it made me worse, right?
In that moment you did?
In that moment. And then I did DMT the next day, 5-MeO. And it was that was what brought it all together. The next day we did 5-MeO, and I was so like, I was down. I was depressed. I was like upset because it just like, I was like, gosh, I just didn't need to see all this.
But why? I don't understand. If you think it's beneficial, why were you upset at him?
Well,
Why'd you think you didn't need to see it?
Well, what I'm saying is all of it together was beneficial.
But the Ibogaine by itself wasn't?
The Ibogaine, well, I mean, no, I think it opened Pandora's box for me, right? Like,
because it made you think about things. That
yeah.
But isn't it better maybe to think about them than to suppress them in the back of your head?
I mean, the experience, like it was like an ass kicking, right? Like
Right.
It was just like, it was like the ultimate ass kicking. It was miserable. Like I was throwing up. I'm saying it's good for you. I'm saying like, but when I put it together with the DMT, and I did the DMT the next day, it brought it all back together, right? Like, you know, after I did the DMT, I'll never forget, like I took the hit of it, and I laid back, and it was like I was gone through this tube. It was just like this tube, like almost like a water slide, right?
Right. Yeah, I've done it.
And
you feel like you're in the center of the universe or something. Like you don't
beautiful.
exist anymore.
It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. Like the white that I seen was like, there's no white, there's no color here that could ever do like same.
Right.
It was so beautiful. I felt so much love. Like it was like pure love. It was like how I felt like whenever I met my kids, you know, like whenever I was there when Atlee was born, when I met Sailor, like the love that I have for them, it was like that, but times a million. You could just feel it, and it was like so good. Like it just showed that like there is good. And for me, I put it together, and it's like it's inside me. Good's inside of us. Feeling good, like those good things are inside of us, and it's just our ego that keeps us from feeling and being happy.
So the Ibogaine gave you this understanding of all the conflicts that you've caused, and whether it's interrelational with other people or even with yourself by not finishing things and not following through on things.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was trying to show you that some part of your problems lie in the fact that maybe you don't respect your own efforts? Like when you look at that
Yeah.
you haven't finished things, do you think like it was showing you that you don't have a respect for yourself because you don't respect the effort that you put into things?
Yeah, I think it showed me that like, yeah, I mean, I think it showed me that like, yeah, 'cause I don't, right? Like I look at everything as, well, if you do good, well, that was what you were supposed to do.
Right.
And if you, like, the only thing that and I still struggle with it, right? Like the only thing that I feel is like, whenever I mess up, like, I live in this mindset of, well, I can always be better. So I stay focused on that aspect of it, of like, what did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard thing. It's a hard balance, because I always want to be better. I always want to be better. I want to give you my best. And, so I think that was what it kind of showed me, was that, hey, like it's okay to, you can do your best. And as long as you do your best, that's what matters. And as long as your intent's good, that's what matters. Like, you're going to mess up. Like, that's normal. And I think it was like, it gave me, like, I don't know, maybe a little grace on myself,
Mm-hmm.
of, because I have this problem of, I just always want to do more. I always want to do more for people. And it's like, I don't know, like it plays against me a lot.
You always want to do more for people? Do you always want to do more for yourself as well? Do you always want to do more in terms of like the effort that you put towards things? Like, when you say you always want to do more, is it just with doing things for people?
I mean, like like the more I can help myself, the more I can help people. Like I like, if I could do anything in the world, like I would take all the pain off of everybody else, right? Like I don't want anybody to hurt, and I think that everything that I do is about trying to help people. Like that's kind of what I find fulfilling, is seeing people happy.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, man. I mean, that's a great way to think about life, too. If you enjoy making people happy and you know how to make people happy, there's things you can do that can enhance people's happiness. We were talking before this podcast about a guy that you pulled out of a truck that went into a pond. And it is, as a fireman, a crazy experience that you had, where you just tell the story, because it's really it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, there was and obviously I can't get into many details of it, but we had a call. We have I get to serve with a lot of great people, and a call, a truck had like gone underwater inside of a pond, rolled up, and we were initially told that it was stuck on the side of the pond, and had no clue that it was going to be underwater. Got there and couldn't see the truck, and so I'd gone over the fence, and another guy come with me, and started going to this pond, because I see two people standing on the side of it, and I thought they were already out, or the guy drove off, whatever, who knows. And so get there, and I could see this little like white square out in the middle of the pond, and this woman goes, she said, "He's still in there," and I said, "In the truck?" And she said, "Yes, he's in the truck." And
it was her son.
Her son, or somewhere they were related. Her son or somebody was, at some point they were related. She said he's still in there. They had watched this all happen. They were the ones that called. And so I was in full bunker gear, like our turnout gear. And so I took my coat off, took my pants off, and other guys are showing up on scene at the same time. And so I jumped in the water, swam out to the truck, and then as soon as I got out there, the truck was probably 3.5, 4 feet deep. The top of it was. And so I swam down to try to see if the windows were unlocked or were open. I thought the window might be open, and it wasn't. And so then I think to myself, well, where's my window punch at? Well, it's in my bunker gear that's on the side of the pond. And I was so mad at myself. Well, at this time, my buddy Eric and my buddy Jonathan jumped in right behind, started swimming out there, no questions asked. I mean, just because they knew it was just to get down. it's time to do it. And they got out there, and then this one of the police officers threw me her baton, so got it, and then I couldn't bust the window open with it. I couldn't get enough leverage underwater. And my buddy Eric, I mean, this dude is like, I mean, he's jacked, right? So he's just beating this window and beats it open. And he beat the back window open. I told him to beat the back window open first. It was a 4-door truck because I was afraid the guy was still conscious, and I was afraid that he was going to reach out and grab me and drown me. So I was like, if I can come in through the back window, he can't just immediately grab me.
Right.
But I couldn't get in through the back window because it was like the truck was full of stuff. Like the whole back seat was full of stuff. So then Eric beats the front window out, and so he did. So then I dove in the truck, and the guy was in there, and he was up, like he was floating, and you couldn't see because it was in a pond, but he was up against kind of like the roof of the truck inside, and I tried to reach in and grab him, or reached and grabbed him, and I just kind of felt where his up at top, and I grabbed his collar of his shirt because I knew I could just get him out of the window, which is pretty tight to fit a person through a window, right? Mm-hmm. So pulled him out, and whenever I did, I kind of like sank because like I had him with me, and I just knew I couldn't let him go because if I did let him go, I'd never find him in the pond. And yeah, I thought I was going to drown.
How deep is the pond?
Probably 10 feet deep, 10 feet deep. But it's mud at the bottom. So I tried to push off the bottom with my feet, and my buddy, he ended up grabbing me. He got me by my belt. I guess I kind of went over a little bit. He grabbed me by my belt and pulled me up. We get to the top, and the guy's obviously, he had drowned. And so we swam him back, myself, Eric, and Jonathan swam him back to the shore, got him up on shore, and then, everybody kicked in and started doing CPR. He was breathing on his own by the time the helicopter landed, and, we had Tiffany there, who was just an incredible, just the EMS people were just incredible.
How do you get the water out of someone's lungs when they do that?
Well, you start doing suction, right? So they put an eye gel in to establish an airway, but getting CPR going, they put an airway in and they started doing suction. I don't know how much fluid she brought off, but they brought a ton of fluid off of him, just doing continuous suction.
So what would you do if you didn't have equipment there?
I mean, compressions, right? Compressions, and trying to, trying to get as much water as you can off. They might aspirate, trying to keep that aspiration out of the lungs, right? Mm-hmm. So, and me, the next day, myself, Eric, and Jonathan, we actually had to go to the doctor because we all have aspiration pneumonia right now. From it. Did
this just happen?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I got aspiration pneumonia. Right, that's what my cough is from.
When did this happen? How long?
Tuesday.
Ago? Wow.
Yeah, but look, the guy, we get updates every day because we all want this guy to make it, and he's off life support. He's talking.
Wow. How long was he in there for?
I know that we were on scene from the time that we got there until the time we pulled him out. I mean, it's probably 10, 12 minutes. But what you don't know is you don't know how long
was he in there before that.
The air was in the truck, right. Or how long there was, something,
right.
Breathing room in the truck,
Right. Fuck.
But it's like, look, I'm surrounded by giants. I'm a man surrounded by giants. When people talk about like, oh, the world's going to shit, or there's just bad people. You just come hang out with me for a day. You should see the people I'm surrounded by. Just like incredible people who would give their shirt off their back, who were just awesome dads, awesome moms, just awesome people, just really, really good people who do good things. And I'm surrounded by them. I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by such people.
Is this people that you know from the fire department?
Fire department, just in every day, right? Look, I get to Tim Kennedy, right? Just you talk about a guy that loves, you talk about a guy that just wants to help people. That dude's always trying to make something better.
Yeah, he's an amazing person.
But yeah, people in the fire department, people just at my gym, right? People coming to the gym and coming in there at 5 a.m. every morning and working out and just trying to be better.
Those people are real. They're people
real.
like that.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are. There's just not that many of them in terms of like comparison to the regular people.
But you have to be one of them for them to
Yeah.
come hang around you.
Yes,
You have to, like, good people.
Yeah.
Good people don't hang out with bad people.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. And also, one of the ways that a person becomes a good person is being around a person like that and then realizing that, like, wow, the effect that person has on me in terms of like the inspiration they provide me, in terms of like the way you can see a person behave and how much admiration you have for them, and you change your behavior patterns to be more like them. People, if your friends are all gross, like, you're probably going to be gross too. You know, if
Yeah.
your friends are all stealing money and just lying and being assholes all the time, it's like, man, like, you don't have a lot to shoot for. You know,
Nobody's
not
ever
a high bar.
Nobody's ever. It's kind of like in jiu-jitsu, right? Like, you're never gonna be. You're like, if you just roll with the same group, like, you're never gonna be better than, like, you might. You can only go so far, advance so far, right?
Right.
It's the same thing in your environment, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you're only gonna be as good as the best. That's the most you could be, is the best
Yeah.
person around you.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it depends on what you're reading, what you're trying to do. I mean, people are pretty flexible. You can do a lot, but it's very important to at least make the best attempt to be around powerful people. And if you can do
Yeah.
that, and the best way to do that is, what you're talking about. Be around people at the gym. Be around people that either do jiu-jitsu or something else that's difficult. Be around firefighters. Be around people that are trying to help people all the time. EMTs, people that are first responders that are working to try to help people on a daily basis.
Or people who are good parents, or
Yeah.
people who are good husbands, and people who are good wives, right? Like,
Yeah.
all of it matters. I mean, and that's how I judge. Like, I don't say I judge people, but I evaluate people.
Mhm.
The people who are around me, the people who I invest my time in. Like, if you've got money in stocks, do you just say, I don't care what it is, I don't care how it's doing, I don't care what it's going to do, right? No, you don't, because it's your money. You'll lose there, right? And I feel the same way is with my time. My time is equity. You have emotional equity, you have time that's equity, and I'm going to invest it in people that are making me better, that are helping me in some way. Not helping me, but like making me
Yeah.
a better person.
Yeah.
And it's a simple formula for me, is like, if you're not somebody that, if I die today, that I want my daughters to be around,
Right.
well, then I don't need you around me.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. And if you can do that, you can eliminate a lot of problems in your life with people that are just, it's unfortunate because I do want people to do better in life, but there's certain people that you just got to cut them loose. They just, wherever they are at this moment, they're too far away from where you need them to be. And if you hang out with them, they're just going to keep creating problems. And then one of the ones that drives me the most nuts is people that create constant problems, and then they get like this sort of emotional charge out of resolving the problems. So they create a problem, and then they resolve the problem, and then they get addicted to that sort of seesaw thing where they're always like in a squabble with someone, and then I'm sorry, and everybody makes up. We're good now. Yeah, we're good now. And then they'll find another one to be involved.
It's
in.
chaos.
Yeah,
They just constant chaos, right?
it's people that are just, they're not only are they not at peace, but they're nowhere even near the road. You're not on the road to peace. You're on the road to occasional reconciliation with people, and a lot of people get into those relationships with boyfriends and girlfriends like that. They get into these things where they fight, they argue with each other, and then they make up, and they get addicted to the making up part. And then
Don't you think that becomes like normal, right? Like sometimes, like, you get in that and it just becomes it becomes a normal thing. Like, so
Yeah.
this becomes the norm. It's like in a relationship, nobody starts off by beating each other, right? Like, it starts off by saying or like, fuck you, right? And then that becomes normal, right? And then every time the bar's pushed a little bit further, a little bit
Right.
further, and then the next thing you know, it's toxic, and it's just bad, and it's like, we just lose respect for each other, and it happens. I mean, it can happen so fast if you don't pay attention.
it can. And that I mean, for a guy, that's horrible, but for a woman, it's worse because a woman has to worry physically about her safety
Absolutely.
from a guy. That's when, you have daughters, as do I, and that's one of the scariest thoughts is that someone's going to fuck your daughter up, beat them up, or do something terrible to them. It's like the fact that men are capable of that is just such a horrific aspect of life, because most people aren't capable of that. Most people would never do that. But the people that would do that, they're real. They're out there, And
how do you prep them for it?
That's a good fucking question. How do you? I think one way is by setting an example. The way you treat people, that's what they're going to expect from other people. The way you treat your wife, the way you treat your, the people that are around you, they're going to expect that because that's what,
if you're hanging out with shitty people and they see you doing that,
yes,
they're going to hang out with shitty people, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I go back to my circle, right? My circle is, it's literally everything. And, like with my daughters, look, I'll be the longest person they'll ever date. I'll be the longest man they'll date. And how I treat them is what they're going to think is like they're going to measure everybody to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they start dating shitty guys down the road, I should probably look in the mirror. And my example that I set to them is, and not just that I'm good to my daughters and that I'm respectful to women, but that I work hard and that I serve the community and that I continue to try to better myself and I accept responsibility for my actions and all these things. Like they're watching everything, and that is, it's going to program them to someday, like, we automatically as parents, we automatically have whatever you want to call it, like street cred with our children, and that's how they learn to handle problems, and that's how they handle relationships and things like that. And it's just so important that my daughters are my accountability factor. Like I look at it and it's like I try to treat people the way that I would want someone to treat my daughters.
Now, when you talk about that Ibogaine experience, about how it bothered you that you had to think about all these times we disappointed people or all the people that were upset at you, what about that was what was so frustrating about that? Was it that you had already gotten through that and put it aside, and now it's like rehashing it and just making you feel like shit, or was it just that you were confronted with reality? I didn't like it.
I think it's just like there's just some people that you're never gonna be good enough for,
right?
And it doesn't. It's not necessarily you.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's just them.
Again, sometimes it's just them, right? And but I didn't see the people. Not the people I fucked over. I didn't see them. I seen like. I seen people like family members that you're like, well, why was it like this for me, right? And that was an aspect of, look, I just let it go. Like, that's kind of that's all the stuff I seen with Ibogaine was kind of like, just let it go. Just let it go. Right. It wasn't, I didn't see the things that I didn't see anything about combat. I didn't see anything like that. I just seen the things that I let control me that I couldn't control.
So was Ibogaine just like, the way I've heard it described is that it's ruthlessly introspective. Mm-hmm. It's like it makes you see things that maybe you've been avoiding thinking about.
Yeah. look, we all know, if we all sit down and we truly want to see it, we all kind of know why we are the way we are. Everything adds up, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like we don't want to face it.
Mm-hmm.
And Ibogaine makes you face it. Like, you're going to sit there, and it's going to keep you there until you've seen enough of it.
And are you hallucinating while you're doing this?
It is like I'm really there. But I can open my eyes and stand up if the world's spinning. But,
But when you close your eyes, it's
there.
like you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're rehashing memories, or like, is that what it is?
It's real. Like, I liked it because the people that I seen Like, obviously I wasn't walking through a city, but the people that I seen were real. The moments that I was watching myself, like how I talked to people, like there was a piece of that, right? Like was real moments. It was like I was sitting in a stadium watching myself from a different point of view. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was real. It was real. Like, it wasn't like I was seeing like crazy, alternate reality. It was real. It was real people. It was real situations. It was real things.
Now, was it a replica of what you'd experienced, or was it not? So, was it situations that never really occurred?
Well, I mean, obviously, the walking onto the stage was not. Obviously, all these people weren't in one room, but
Right.
But their faces were real. They were real people in my life. They were there. They were real people. So I mean, obviously, there was like a balance to it, but it was like all of it made sense, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like every bit of it, like I knew what it was telling me.
So it's like you walked onto a stage, and then the audience was all filled with people that you've had conflicts with,
Or just like people that I don't feel like, people I feel like that
you let down, or...
that make me feel like I let them down when I don't think when I look at it logically, I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, and there was just, there was a lot of that.
And so you get out of that,
Mm-hmm.
you do DMT,
Yeah, the next day.
you put it all together because of those two experiences.
Yeah,
And then what is life like right after that?
before I went down there, I mean, I was having an anxiety attack a week.
And what does that mean? Like, what happens during your anxiety attacks?
Like I'll wake up throwing up. Like I'd be in the floor, like throwing up, crying, just like can't control it.
And but when you say anxiety, like, what are you thinking?
I just that how much of a failure I am.
Really? That's what it was?
Yeah.
A failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's probably... And look, I'm not going to say those thoughts go away. Like while I was on that truck the other day, all I was telling myself was just like, I can remember it vividly of, you're a piece of shit. Look how this is you. Like you didn't bring the window punch with you. How could you mess up so bad? Now this guy's going to die because of you. And then I'm watching my friends swim out there and I'm just thinking to myself like, oh, look at you. You're an idiot. And now you've brought them in here and now they're going to drown and you're going to get your friends killed. And then, like, it was just like the whole time I'm literally like, my brain is just talking shit to me of like, oh yeah, you know what? Like you're not gonna be able to get this guy out now because you didn't train hard enough, right? Like it's just like all these things, like just beating it, right? And I don't know why it works that way, right? But it works for me.
When you
you
were growing up, did you have parents that were very critical of you?
I mean. Like there was accountability. Everything was black and white, right? Like everything was accountability, right? I mean, look, my dad, my grandpa. I mean, I grew up with my mom until I was like 10, and then I went over to my dad, and my dad, my dad, and my grandfather, and my grandmother, like they're the greatest people I've ever met. And if I can be half of them, I'll be somebody. But it was just like it was more of a there's right and wrong. There's
But was there a thing back then about you not being good enough?
No.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
No, never.
So why do you have that thought in your head now, do you think? Like why do you
because I couldn't save my team. Like
So is that when it started?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then the metal just made it worse.
And for people who don't know what you're talking about, we had a long conversation about this on the first podcast that we did together, and it's a harrowing story. I mean, it's wild shit what you went through. And I would just tell people just, go listen to that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to say it again.
Yeah. But that's where it comes from, I don't know, like when I walked in that valley that day, like I truly thought that I thought I was good at something, right? I mean, I put the work in, and like I thought I was good, and you know, I really thought that, I don't know. I mean, obviously it shows my naiveness, but I never thought that there would be a situation that I couldn't get my teammates out of, right? And I thought that if anybody was ever going to get killed, it was going to be me. And yeah, just like wanting to help them and bring them home alive so bad, and then just getting in there and they're all dead. And so it was just like, I just felt like I let them down, right? Like I just felt like I let them down, you know? And so, and then you come back home and then you get this Medal of Honor. So like, it's such a mental, you know, mental jujitsu with myself of, I got a medal for failing, you know, and people are like, oh, you know, but you did so much good. Well, it's like, that's not what I set out to do when I went there. I set out to go get my teammates out. And so like, you know, I feel like a lot of times people want to change the narrative because they don't like the way it feels.
Right.
And I'll never do that because the lesson that I learned from that and the emotions that I get from facing the true results of that day push me to the next level to be able to go out and help people today.
So that time of your life, that was responsible for all of the whether you would call it self-doubt or self-judgment, like the nasty voice in your head that says you're a loser.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's it, right?
But even after the Ibogaine and even after the DMT, you still have that voice because this was just last week.
But it doesn't. But the difference is it doesn't control me. Like, I recognize it. Like,
you know what it is when it's happening.
I know what it is when it's happening, and a lot of times I use it to my advantage. Do you know? Like, like I use it to my advantage to give me the edge to push on.
Yeah.
And I think it helps me. I just think that now I can control it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so you know what it is, but because you're experiencing it, but you know what it is, so you can stop it before it takes over, instead of allowing it to just overwhelm you.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, like I know. I mean, I know I'm not a piece of shit, right? Like I know that I know that I'm a good person. Like my mind doesn't control. It doesn't make, like when it's doing this, it doesn't make me believe it, right?
Right.
And I think that, you know, Ibogaine gave me that by, you know, I guess offloading this, like kind of the stuff that doesn't matter, you know, like when you get emotional, like you start focusing on all these things, and it's like now I can control that to get back to the logical, like, okay, let's look at logic, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And just trying to keep that as a balance, but I don't ever want to lose that.
Right.
I don't ever want to lose that voice, because that voice is what drives me to push hard, right? Like what I, you know, I don't ever want to lose that.
Right. So that voice, the critical voice, is the thing you think you need to push yourself?
For me, it's what helps me. Yeah. I mean, obviously it doesn't sound very healthy, does it? But
it doesn't. I'm wondering if there's other, I mean, I kind of have a similar thing going on in my head, but I don't ever let it get to the point where, you know, I'm saying you're a loser, you fucked up, you fucking idiot. I don't have that kind of internal dialogue, but I do recognize that I have to manage my mind. I can't allow those kind of thought patterns to spiral in my head, so I don't let them go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we all get those, you know, those feelings.
For sure, right? I mean, I think we do, and I think that, like, you know, would I need those if I wasn't going to continue to put myself in these critical moments? Probably not, right? Like, you know, I it's kind of like whenever I was a Marine. you know, to do what people like Tim Kennedy, to do what people like Jocko, you can't beat evil people unless you can be evil. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't, like, if you're not willing to, and I'm not saying either one of those are evil, so let me say that back. But for me, in my mindset, like, for me to be able to, when you fight, whether it's in a ring, whether it's with a gun, it really comes down to who's willing to give it all, and I mean, obviously training comes into it, but you, I mean, if you don't get in the ring, you ain't gonna fight. If you're not willing to go get evil with somebody and take their life, you ain't gonna, you know what I mean?
You're not coming home.
You're not coming home, and so it's like, what level are you willing to get at? And
well, the crazy thing to me has always been that then you ask those people to just rejoin society, and I don't know how much. Like, again, I don't know how much counseling they give you, or how much counseling would you? How much do they give you?
While I was in the military?
Yeah, when you're leaving.
I mean, so I was fortunate because I got sent home from Afghanistan. I went to to this rehab center for like 8 weeks. It didn't make any sense to me at the time because I think it was too close to the event.
What is the rehab center like?
It was cognitive CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I think. So basically, like, where you try to reprogram the way you think about things, or like, okay, so I feel like I was a failure, and then you write it out. I mean, it was like this therapy that it was tough, right? And I went to that, but that was like, I had this amazing, and I talk about her in the book, Captain Katie Kopp. She was on the combat stress team, and so when I was in Afghanistan, when there was a critical incident like this, they would fly in these psychologists, and they would try to get on top of it pretty quick, right? To be there to help and all this. She did so amazing. Obviously, I didn't want to talk to her while I was there, so she ended up sending me home from Afghanistan in December. In November. I got home December 5th. But she like worked out this arrangement to where I could, instead of just going back to base, I came straight home because the deployment was still going on, and I went to this CBT thing. But I mean, you're not really taught about counseling. You're not really like, you know, you're just not. And the last thing you want to do is like feel like you're weak.
Right.
Like feel like you can't handle it because it's your job. You know, it's like this thing, and like, you know, nobody. I mean, I wouldn't say anybody judges you, because look, we're all suffering, and we want people to get help. But it's just like one of these deals, like, you know, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, that bothers me.
Yeah. The problem with strong people, right? They don't want to ask for help,
and I just don't want to be an inconvenience.
Right. That's another thing with strong people. So, this shift that happened after you do the Ibogaine and then you do the DMT, like, what's before and what's after? Like, what is the difference? You
know, afterwards, I mean, I didn't have anxiety. Like,
so no more anxiety attacks. No. That's still the same way?
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So 2 years ago, it knocks it completely out of your system.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel great. Like, I'm more present. Yeah, I mean, like, I can be who I want to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. Like, I get to, it's so good. It's like so good. Like, I wake up every day, and I mean, I'm not gonna say every day is the best day of my life, but every day, like, there's a moment in it that I just look around and I'm just like, how awesome is this, right? Like, I can literally look at my friends and just, you know, I mean, I'll start tearing up just thinking about like how awesome it is that I get to be surrounded by such great people. I mean, I'm sitting here with you right now. You know what I mean? Like, how awesome is that? You know, it's like I don't deserve any of this, you know, but I get to do this.
But who does deserve it then if you don't? What does that, I mean, when people think like that, I'm always like, of course you deserve it.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody deserves anything. I think we're worthy of things.
Yes.
But
It's also like that thought, like you don't deserve it means it shouldn't be happening to you.
yeah, I mean,
It's not just simply you don't deserve it. It's you don't deserve it, so it shouldn't be happening. But like, what does that mean? It's happening.
well, yeah.
I don't understand that kind of thinking.
Well, why would I? Why do I deserve your time?
Why do I deserve your time?
Well, I mean, I think it's a question. That's called mutual respect.
Well, it's also just life. You know, I
It
think
is.
sometimes people complicate their thought process with unnecessary paths. They just go down these like thing. You're not going to get anything out of that. You're not going to. Why do I deserve this path? There's nothing there for you.
But that's a natural path.
Yes.
So and that's what I'm saying is that's a
Yeah.
natural path that automatically comes in, and instead of riding that path that we know there's no logic to or good into, it's like I get to do this. How badass is this?
That's a great way to look at it.
And so like
Yeah.
that's the control we have. We don't have control of what happens to us most of the time,
Right.
but we do have a control on how we look at it.
Do you talk in this book about your Ibogaine and DMT experience?
I do.
You do?
I do. I talk about it.
And is it one of the main factors of this idea of the way forward? Or just one?
It's just one of them, right? We
one of
talk
them.
about the circle, I talk about, like, last time we talked about killing that guy with the rock. And I talk about
That's
that.
a fucked up thing to say casually.
Well,
You know that story I had about killing that dude with a rock?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
but I talk about how it, like how much that guy did for me and how much he changed my life, which is really cool. And, and the more I think about it, like, how much more he still changes my life today, and not in a bad way, but in a good way. And, we talk about that, talk about,
How does it change your life in a good way?
I think it's what gives me empathy. It gives me, it shows me that if I can connect with that guy, I can connect with anybody. If I can, we all have more things that we're related on than we do that we're not.
Right.
And it's a choice on which side you choose to pick, right? Like, there's only a few things that you can do to me that we're not gonna like, that we're not gonna be able to get along about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to mess with my family, you want to mess
Right.
with people I care about. It's a whole different ballgame. But outside that, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you believe. Like, are you a good person or are you not, right? Like, it's good or bad. What's your intent? And,
Yeah.
that guy like, I don't know. Like, I was so arrogant coming into that day and him almost killing me. But then just watching him die at my hands and just not, I don't want to say I don't want to say that I didn't know why I was killing him, because he was going to kill me, but it's just like the reality of, like, somebody's, like, it's not one-sided, right? Like, the same way that people were going to be hurt if I died, there were people that were going to be hurt if he died. And I think with that, it's like trying to be able to see it from somebody else's side is a huge, huge tool. Trying to see somebody else from their view is a really, really critical tool before we get all wrapped up in how we're going to handle things.
Yeah, that's a thing that very few people do, is try to look at life through this person, especially if you have a conflict with a person, not like a hand-to-hand combat situation, fighting for your life, but I mean any kind of conflict that people have. It's hard sometimes for people to look at other human beings and try to imagine what's going on in their head and how they view you and how they view whatever conflict you're two engaged in. The two of you are engaged in. Like, it's a good exercise, and it's good for empathy. It's good to kind of get a sense of how you should communicate with that person. Think about what it's like to be them. Try to put yourself in that position. And for a lot of people, that's very hard to do. Yeah,
because when you do that, you have to also check yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, I feel like for me, like, I try to go into things of like, look, I'm gonna lay it all on the table for you. I never want to miss an opportunity for the fact that I'm afraid that I'm gonna get screwed over, I'm gonna get hurt. I don't want to miss on getting to know somebody or having a badass relationship or being able to meet somebody or them be my friend. I'm not ever going to let the fear of what they might do to me or how it might affect me keep me from doing that, because I know that I can recover. You know, like I don't know. Like I just, people are great. Like most people are good. I believe most people
are good, especially if you get them on the right day and under the right circumstances and you interact with them the right way.
But even if you catch them on the wrong day, like how much of an influence could you have on them, right? By being the person that comes up and says, hey, you know, how's your day? Right? Like just anything, just a little bit of empathy goes a long ways.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. So when you wrote this book, so you wrote it with this guy, Robert O'Neill. Who's this gentleman?
So Rob killed bin Laden.
Oh.
And, you know, what brought us together with the main story, and he can tell this, was I talked about killing that guy. We speak together. And Rob talked about how, you know, right after he shot bin Laden, he immediately, you know, went over to bin Laden's kids. And he was like, I just took out the guy who seems the most evil to us, and now I just became the most evil person to them. Oof. And it ain't simple.
Right.
It's not simple.
Taking a man's life in front of his family cannot be simple.
No. I mean, yeah. So, you know, that was kind of what brought us together, and we're just like, how can we help people? How can we show our stories? You know, because I feel like these books, like you talk about Into the Fire, you know, I'll talk about my book. I feel like it made us like not human, like larger than life. I'm no different than you.
What do you mean by that? Just
like it tells a story in a way that people are like, I could never imagine doing that. You know, like I could never. Well, gosh, I would never be able to do that. Or I could never imagine being there or doing that, right? And it's like, I mean, I couldn't have either before I was there. And so I just felt like, you know, I'm no different than anybody else. You know, I was there. You know, I went over, I was there. Just everybody makes different choices in life. And how could we take our experiences and try to help people see that there's a way forward, there's hope, that people are good, that, you know, take from the hard lessons that's held us back or that we've had to be in and try to turn that into something good.
And so when you set out to write this book, did you get in touch with Robert? Did you guys, did you both have like the same kind of vision as to what to do here?
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to have principles that are simple and we wanted to, come together and talk more, like not just about war, but about everyday life, everyday struggles that we have, and kind of humanize war, right? Like not humanize war, but humanize life and humanize us, and kind of show that, look, the same concepts that made us successful in combat are the same. It is literally the same principles that you just apply in all situations.
So do you feel like the first book, when you're talking about it being larger than life, that you're missing like your own internal struggles and dialogues? Like what is it about it that didn't make you seem like a regular person to people?
I mean, I think it only told like the majority of the good side. Like it didn't tell, you know, that the aspect of, you know, look, I grew up in a small town. Like, I'm adopted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these factors of growing up, of like the people who kind of shaped me to do that. Mm-hmm. Like, how did I get to the point that I did what I did in that valley in that moment? Well, it's all these people around me. You know what I mean? And still today, like, everything I'm successful at is because I'm surrounded by great people who push me and hold me accountable every day. And, you know, this book talks about, you know, we're not meant to be alone. You know, we're meant to live, be around people and interact with people. And, you know, this book kind of talks about how, you know, how people are everything, and you know, who you select to be around, from all the way from who you select to be around, from who you, all that is what, there's always a way forward. There's always a way forward. And when you can find hope, it doesn't matter if you're in a valley in Afghanistan surrounded and you've just lost all your team, or you're back here and you're getting divorced, or whatever it is. As long as there's hope and you've got good people around you, you're going to get through it. Like, everybody has a bad day.
And so when you decided to do this, how do you start a book like this? Like what are the first words you write? Are you writing this with a ghostwriter?
Yeah.
Or you are?
Ghostwriter.
So do you just
I can't even spell my name. Kidding me?
So, well, that's why you know, when you type, it gives you that little red squiggly line underneath it. Lets you know you spelled it wrong.
It's handy.
So how do you start something like this? Like, did you have an outline in your head of how to do it?
So we came up with an idea, and we just kind of talked about, you know, we wanted like almost like a self-help book. We wanted people to be able to read it and apply it to their lives, take the stories that we have. And so we just got with, you know, people, agents, who helped us put that kind of like write out this outline, and then we took it around to the publishers, right? And the biggest thing, you know, me and Rob wanted with these publishers was, like, we didn't just want a book, we wanted a book that was, like, we didn't want it to be left or right, we didn't want it to be political, we didn't want it to be, we wanted it to just be for, that anybody could pick up and read and apply it to their life.
Speaking of left or right, like, what percentage of people that are in the military are left wing?
It was never a conversation.
Never?
Never.
So it's, your concern is about staying alive, keeping your people alive, and whatever the mission, whatever task you have to do.
You know, when I went to fight, I wasn't willing to die or fight. I wasn't fighting for Republicans. I wasn't fighting for Democrats. I didn't care what color you were. I was fighting for Americans. And all of that, no matter what God you pray to, no matter what your sexual preference is, none of that matters to me. Like, I feel like the America I was fighting for was good. Was good. You know, that flag to me represents good. People who love their country. People who want it good. And no, I wasn't fighting for Republicans or Democrats or any of that.
Of course not. But what I'm saying is, how many people you never had conversations about politics or anything? No.
I can't remember one conversation of even thinking about that. It never came up.
That's interesting. Now, Afghanistan was a big part of your life experiences.
Yeah.
And then when the troops pulled out, that whole chaotic disaster, like, what did that feel like to you?
I mean, it sucked, right? Like, but it's not like there's nobody who set foot over there that ever thought it was going to go any other way.
Really?
I didn't.
You thought, like, when we pull out, the Taliban is just going to take over and it's going to be chaos again.
I mean, what was their goal there?
Right.
Well, I mean, how did we expect to leave it? Can anybody tell me that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we knew. I mean, I don't know. Let me say this. I'll speak for me, not everybody else. I knew that I never thought the Afghan military would be able to sustain itself and defend it, right?
When you heard them say that, though, what was that like, just hearing it? Because a lot of people felt the same way that you're expressing yourself right now. A lot of people felt that way, that there's no way they were going to be able to maintain it.
No chance. So, I mean, how did I feel when it quit or when we left?
Well, how'd you feel like when they were trying to pretend like they would be able to do it?
I mean, it's all bullshit, right? Like, look, the only people that win in these wars is Raytheon, General Dynamics. I mean, they're the only ones that win. the end of the day.
That's so fucked up.
And people don't want to think about that, right? Because it's like when you start thinking about that level of fucked up, like it's not, and you can't.
They don't like to think that way, and they definitely don't want to think that that's a motive, and that those people benefiting and these corporations benefiting is a motive for doing certain things that cost lives.
I think we've seen that plenty.
When you see what's going on right now, because we are in the middle, as people who maybe listen to this in the future, we're in the middle of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It just started a few days ago, and everyone is kind of shocked and terrified by this prospect of a hot war going on, inside the former Soviet Union with Russia invading Ukraine, and we're watching it play out on television, and it's a very terrifying time for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is terrifying.
This giant superpower that's trying to control more of its territory, or what it used to be its territory, former Soviet Union. Is
it though? Let's again. I hate Russia, so let's get that off the table. But what would we do if China came in, and China was teaming up with Mexico, and they were operating out of Mexico? What would we do?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what we would do. And again, I don't know what to believe.
I don't know what to believe.
Because, look, first off, Putin's evil. Like, nobody's arguing that. But Ukraine, their government's not known for being honest Abes. They're one of the most corrupt governments there are. And it's like, I just don't, it doesn't, like, we're hypocritical. And again,
I see what you're saying. Like, you're not saying that, Russia's good and Ukraine's evil. You're saying it's messy.
I'm just saying that if we were Putin, obviously the way he's handling it, but again, like, we don't even know that. How many civilians are being killed, right? Like, and
I think the death count right now is in the 300s.
And so
more than 300 people have died, right?
And so, why do they still have Wi-Fi, internet? Why are their lights still on?
Well, that's a good question, but I think one of the things that's going on with Wi-Fi is I think Elon Musk is
for sure
chipped in to
but
use
again,
satellites.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to believe. You hear these stories that inspire you to think that, these people on that island, and next thing, like, that, they gave their life, and there's this, and it's like, well, now they're alive, supposedly. Who knows what's really happening? You see that tank that, just veered off and ran over that car, and it's like, then you hear that was a Ukrainian tank. You know what I mean? It's like,
I think that's not true, though. I think that was a Russian tank, right?
I haven't heard any.
But I see what you're saying. There's so much misinformation online. Yeah, the island was a big one that they told Russia to go fuck himself, and that they killed everybody on the island. But it turns out, no, they actually been captured.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think they're both fucked up, right? And so it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. My part is like, at the end of the day, Russia is killing innocent civilians who have nothing to do with this, are losing their lives.
Yeah. Jamie, I'm going to send you something just so that you could have this too. There's a very good video that's online that explains the conflict, and it's not a judgmental video. It's not casting the blame one way or another, but it's a YouTube video that explains. I think we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but it explains how this conflict got started. And why Russia, for like logistic reasons, why it wants to control. I just sent it to you, buddy.
But we're going to put all these sanctions on them, right? But why are we still buying oil from them?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like everybody's pouring Russian vodka down the toilet, but
we're still buying over 500,000 barrels a day from them.
that is so wild, right? Like if you told that to people, they would go, "What?"
And when you add that up, Putin's making. He's.
So this is the video, and
It's long.
it's just play a little bit of it at the beginning because it shows you the map of where Crimea is and Ukraine, and that if they join NATO, like they're trying to join the EU right now.
Yeah.
If they join
Modern
NATO,
conflict series that explains the entire course of the 2008 Russian invasion of Georgia.
it's called
as
Why
well as the
Russia is
entire
Invading
wars-
Ukraine. Why Russia is Invading Ukraine. It's available on YouTube, and it's very good. Well, we don't have to listen to it, but
Yeah.
but
deal
essentially,
for less than 15.
Sorry.
it's okay. Essentially, it shows the geographics of the area. It shows you on a map like why it's important to control that area. And then they also talk about how Ukraine has massive reserves of oil and natural gas and how much value there is in that for Russia and for the rest of the world, and how they, through this, this sort of natural resource rich country, they could become like a huge economic power and sort of separate from Russia and separate from the rest of that area and become a part of the EU, which is what they're trying to do, and also become a part of NATO. And someone could park missiles right there, sort of like what happened with the Soviet missile crisis, that during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
During Kennedy's administration, where they tried to park nuclear missiles in Cuba, which is just right off our shores. Like, I think that's what they're trying to explain. But again, this video goes way into depth, and they're real clear about how complicated it is. It was a very complicated situation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of control of the area. There's a lot of, in terms of like tactical control, the ability to like for a military to have control in case there's some sort of an invasion or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, all I know is that there's innocent civilians getting killed. And at the end of the day, like, look, even if Putin, they keep making it, well, if he gets into Kyiv, right, he gets into the city, like, they take over the city. Well, let me tell you something. Take it from us that even when you take over that city, now you're going to fight 20 years of guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the purpose here? What are you going to gain?
Right. What are you going to gain?
What are you going to gain?
Well, I think what he's looking for is Ukraine to give in to his demands, right?
Well, I think he thought that in the beginning, but at this point he should probably see that that's not. It's not going to happen. The difference in obviously we handled it different, but the difference in us going to Iraq and Afghanistan versus him going here is like he also has the world against him, not only Ukraine. The world is against him doing this, which, I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And I just know that it just sucks because of politics again. People are suffering.
Yeah, it is. It does suck, and it is horrible, and it speaks to the distrust that people have in the mainstream media today, because so many people don't know what is the true story. Like what am I supposed to believe?
Well, how do you trust them?
Right.
How do you trust them? Because even if they only show a part of the story that is real, it's lying is if you don't tell the whole story, it's the same as lying.
Yes, it is the same as lying. If you tell a distorted version of the story because that's what the people that are paying for your advertisements want you to tell, that's lying.
It's lying.
It is.
And
they're in the business of lying sometimes.
Well, because there's
sometimes
no
they lie.
accountability.
Right.
There's no accountability. How do you hold them accountable?
Well, they're being held accountable by the people that pay for their ads. That's what's different. It's not like, it should be do no harm, right? Just like a doctor. Like the doctors have an oath. They're supposed to be trying to take care of someone and do no harm. The same should be what the media should be. Their ethos should be tell the truth always. Like give the facts, tell the truth. And then, in some of these shows now, unfortunately, it becomes more about editorializing than it does even about the facts of the news. It becomes more about the opinions of these people. And, we know they're reading off a fucking teleprompter. We know that they have scripts. We know that someone talks to them about talking points. We know that they have a corporation behind them that's paying for these ads brought to you by Pfizer. And they have all these, people that are in their ear. And so the version even of their editorializing has all been shaped by influence.
Yeah. I mean,
and this is what we're using to try to figure out what's going on in the world during this tragedy.
They're being held, like their accountability is to the people that are paying them and not to the people who are relying on them. And but I mean, again, look, there's only one color that matters in this country, and that's green, in this world, and that's green.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up, and what people are really terrified is if while this is happening, what happens if China invades Taiwan at the same time?
Well, I mean, I think that's inevitable.
Think so?
I do. I mean, listen, for whatever it's worth, right? But I mean, of course, like why, like if you were America's enemies right now, now's as good a time as ever.
It's the best time.
So why
right?
not?
If you were America's enemy, now's the best time.
Yeah, I mean,
so much chaos, so much conflict.
Our priorities are so far off. We're worried about trying to make our naval fleet green, and they're over there rocking rockets around and just over there teaching meat eaters, right? And it's like, I mean, I get there's a balance, but again, like you can't stay the free world and stay the leader and stay an influencer if you can't protect it.
What do you think happened in terms of like this crazy woke shit that's invaded the military? I never thought I would see it in the military. I thought that would be the one sector of our society that would be immune to that kind of ridiculous ideology.
I mean, I just think that people, people have gotten they get offended by everything. And I don't know,
But why?
Well, because
coming from a person who's served and been in combat duty and experienced the horrors, like real problems. Like, what is it about that?
I mean,
this woke shit.
I mean, I just think that life, like we have first world problems,
right?
And that's it, right? Like,
it's the ultimate first world problem, right?
It is, and that's most of our problems here are ultimate first world problems, and but again, you have to understand, talk about my generation. My generation, we had access to internet, right? Like everything was kind of instant gratification. I didn't have to go out and raise a garden, and I didn't have to do the things that my grandparents had to do to be able to live and to be able.
Right.
Everything's convenient for me, but it doesn't mean that so these people who are portraying these problems, they are true problems to them, and they are that big of a deal to them, but it's kind of like when you're looking at your kids, like when my daughter comes to me and she's like, so and so, he said this and it hurt my feelings, and she's devastated. It goes back to adversity. That is the biggest problem she's ever dealt with, and it is that big to her.
Right.
Just because it's not to me, because I've dealt with all this other, it is that big to her, and that's what's happening with everybody else. It's like we have first world problems here, and they haven't had adversity, and they haven't had to have that. And so these things come up, and instead of learning how to deal with them, we're trying to cater to them.
Right.
Instead of, when people get offended by what I say, I always ask, is it inaccurate? Was it offensive? Or was it that you just didn't like what I said? Did you just not agree with me? Because just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Well, some people get offended too easily, and they don't want to hear that. But some people get upset at things too easily, and it's because they're making a problem that a lot of folks would think is not a very big problem, and they're turning it into a gigantic one in their head because they don't have real problems.
I mean, I couldn't imagine going to my dad and telling him that somebody said something to me.
It hurt your feelings.
It hurt my feelings. I couldn't imagine.
Well, you know, that's that old expression. You know, the hard times create hard men. Hard men create easy times create weak men create hard times. And this is the cycle of existence. I remember when I was a kid, I was reading about the fall of the Roman Empire, and we were just talking about the excess of the Roman Empire during its demise. And I remember thinking, I wonder if that's ever going to happen here. Because I remember thinking, like, every civilization in the past that was a great civilization, whether, you know, whatever it is, ancient Egypt or whatever ancient civilization that was this dominant, massive civilization, they all went away. The ancient Greeks.
And we're on the fast track.
Yeah. Oh, my God, we're moving so fast.
We're one of the youngest nations, and we're the superpower.
Yes. Yeah. We're one of the youngest nations, and we're also unique in that we're a nation of immigrants.
Yeah.
It's a nation consisted entirely of people who moved here. And you know, obviously Native Americans as well, but the people that moved here are the bulk of the humans that are here. And it's so recent. I talked about it in my comedy special. I said the United States was founded in 1776. People lived to be 100. I go, that's 3 people ago.
It's 3 people ago.
3 people ago. 3 people ago, they decided to try to figure out how to create this new
and look
experiment
what we've gone
self-government.
through.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Pretty wild, right? You know, and I just think, you know, look, like we have to keep that in mind, and again, but people are just so entitled, right? Like, you know, it's, I don't know, like I don't want this to sound terrible, we're the trust fund babies of the world.
We are the trust fund babies of the world. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's not. I don't think that sounds terrible at all. I think.
Well, I don't want to offend trust fund babies. You know what I mean?
I think that they need a little offending, but we're spoiled.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we really are. I mean, I used to say that about California, that California was like, we were the trust fund people when it comes to the weather, because there's no weather in California. Mm-hmm. So no one has like a real sense of like what nature can do to you. And growing up in Massachusetts,
except those wildfires.
Yeah, those wildfires are a motherfucker. Those are a wake-up call. Those make people nicer. You know, in Massachusetts, when it would snow, everybody would kind of get together. You know, you'd help people. You see somebody pulled over the side of the road, people would pull over and try to help them. They try to get them out of a ditch if they got stuck. Mm-hmm. They try to help push them or help shovel them. That was the thing that people, like, you realize you could die out here. Like, when it's, you know, 10 below zero and it's in the middle of fucking January, and you see someone whose hazard lights are on and there's no one else on the road, like, you feel obligated to help that person. And there's a thing about nature where it makes you confront your own vulnerability, your own mortality. And California doesn't get that very often.
You know, and I have this theory of, I don't know, I just believe that the more adversity you've gone through, the more hard times you've gone through, the more power you have to help others. The more struggle you've had, the more you can help others.
Yes.
You know, like, in the more vulnerability you have, right? Because to help somebody, you have to be vulnerable. You just have to. To connect with somebody, you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And people who have gone through stuff and came out of it, they have the power to be vulnerable because they know that they're going to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in order to get people to connect with you, they have to understand that you've experienced some bad situations yourself. It's not simply just that you know the right way to go about things. And one of the things that Jocko does so well is talk about
everything.
Your own, you know, human shortcomings, your own doubts, your own fears, all those things, and then how to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, Jocko has this way of, and it's awesome, of, like, he defuses you before you even know it, right? Like, you could come in and he has this way of, like, you could have this whole built up like if I'm about to go nuclear, I call Jocko, right?
Do you?
Yeah. Oh, he'll tell you. He'll tell you. We talked about it on the last podcast, and I'll call Jocko, and he listens. He listens to you, so you're kind of like running around in a circle, and telling him, I've got this whole plan built up, and this is how I see it. And then he just he lets you wear yourself out, and then he comes in and he talks logic.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I called him this one time about this. I was so pissed off at some stuff that had happened, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna go over here. I'd already had this plan that I'm gonna like, it's on. I'm ready to lose everything, and
Settle down,
yeah,
Dakota.
There it was. He listened, and he goes,
Okay.
he goes check, and he said, well, is it? He said the only time you should fight, or the only time you should go at or entertain this stuff with people is one way, is if it's are you willing to lose everything? Are you willing to go all in? Because you do this, and then they buck up to you. Well, you're gonna lose and look even worse if you don't do something and keep going, right? Like, how far do you want to take it?
Right.
And he's like, the only time it makes sense to engage in something like this is if you're willing to just say, hey, look, it's worth me losing everything that I got, my freedom, whatever it is. And he said, outside that, it ain't worth it. And when it gets to that point, that's your deciding factor. That's when it's time to engage.
Yeah.
And it was like, gosh, man, like but he defuses you, right? Like, cause he kind of lets you wear yourself out and figure it out. And then he just kind of helps you, guide you, right? Like,
Hits you with some logic. Yeah. Well, he's a leader. Jocko's one of those rare people that's an actual, real, bona fide leader.
Mm-hmm.
And you could talk to him about pretty much anything, and he'll be able to look at it rationally.
Yeah, he's such a unique guy. Such an
Very
incredible
unique
guy. He's that dude's done so much for me, just as a friend, and like, that guy is just, I owe Jocko so much.
I think a lot of us do, as a friend and just as an example, of, the way he likes to describe it, extreme ownership, ownership of everything, failures, successes,
And he's the real deal. I hear people talk sometimes, like, I just want to be like Jocko, and I'm like, you'll never be like Jocko, but you can strive to be like Jocko. Jocko is a superhuman,
Yeah, good luck. I mean, you'd have to live his life, and you might not survive. That's the reality of a Jocko, is like, Jocko didn't have to make it, and all the things that he's gone through. Same with you, all the things you've gone through. You didn't have to make it. You did, and you're very fortunate that you did. But you don't make a person like you don't make a person like Jocko easily. It's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that iron sharpens iron, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now this book is out, like,
Came out today.
oh, today? Really?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably why we scheduled this, huh?
Yeah.
This today. So when it comes out, what do you do now? Do you have to do like a book tour? Do you have to go talk to a bunch of people?
Yeah, I mean, I went on Andy Frisella's podcast yesterday.
Okay, cool.
It was badass. Me and Rob went out there. I was in St. Louis, and then here today.
Is that where he does his?
Yeah.
Out there? Yeah.
Yeah. He's an incredible guy.
I'm friends with him online. I just
Yeah.
chit chat with him.
Dude, he's such an incredible guy. Like, went out there to their facility, and just like the culture he brings, like he's just, he's a guy that lives life on his own terms, and he cares about people, and he's real thoughtful, and he's very fucking smart. And
He seems very smart, and he has a love of 1970 Chevelles like I do.
he does. Yeah, his facility's crazy.
His car is insane.
So awesome.
That 70 Chevelle he has,
Yeah.
that thing's fucking beautiful. But yeah, his message and the way he communicates online is like, I like it.
And like when you walk into places, and you can tell a lot about the vision and the owner by the company, right? Especially a place like his big. Everywhere in that place was out at First Form was just like crazy, like just everything, great energy. People were so nice. I mean, you could just tell that it was awesome, and he's a great guy. We did the podcast with him yesterday. So funny, so smart. And he cares. He cares about people, and he cares about people, and that's how I judge people. It's like, do you care about people? How do you treat people? Because that's really all that matters. And so, like, we're going out. I'm on here today, and then we've got some some things tomorrow and this week, and then yeah.
So you just do like a tour? You gonna do any like television shows or any of that stuff?
No, I mean
It's kind of over for that stuff, isn't
It's
it?
kind of over. Like, it's the podcast game, right?
Yeah.
We've been doing podcasts for the last 2 weeks, so yeah. So just going around, just trying to spread the word about it, talk about it. Yeah.
And how long have you been doing a podcast now?
So I do the American Party. I mean, I've been podcasting for like 4 years. Switched around to different formats. Like, I used to do the interviewing, and it's hard to get guests to relying on guests, right? So I do it with Dan Holloway. We do the American Party, and it's just about like,
You just talk.
we just talk. It's about principles, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, So I mean, it's just about principles, and it's about, you know, I don't care if you're left or right. Like, look, I just care if you're a good person, and that's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's a lot more simple than whether, you know, the left and right thing's complicated. It's like the reasons why people are left versus the reason why people are right, and what do you define as left versus what do you define as right? You know, I think that's a complicated conversation.
It's a complicated conversation. I don't even know if they're even loyal to that, right? And so it's just, you know, we do the American Party podcast, and we try to break it down to looking at it from what's best for the people, what's best for people, and you know, those are principles. Those are principles of, you know, to do good for others, to do good for yourself. You know, it's all this stuff. I'm not smart enough to make things complicated, so I just have to keep them simple. It works out for me.
Yeah, well, you know, there's some people that love making things more complicated. They get off on it.
Well, there's
like
confusion there. There's power in confusion.
Yeah, there's like a rush in explaining things in a way that baffles most people, where you go, wait a minute, what are you saying exactly? And they're using all these fancy words and elaborating and beautiful, you know, pontificating in a beautiful way.
It sounds good sometimes.
Sounds good. Sounds good, but it doesn't sound good if you don't know what the fuck they just said. Like, some people are too smart. I'll talk to them, I'm like, hold on, slow down. What did you just say?
Can you break it down to where I understand it?
Talk to me like I'm 5.
Yeah. That's how I have to do everything.
So you do it once a week?
No, twice a week.
Twice a week?
We do twice a
that's
week.
cool.
Yeah, so we do Wednesdays and Fridays. I love it. You know, just to try to break down things that are going on and like how it's going to affect us, right? Like, does this really matter or not? I mean, how many times are we focused on things that really don't matter? You know,
a lot.
And that's what I talk about, you know, in this book of, you know, so I'm a helicopter pilot, and so like you know, there's a lot of things going on when you're flying a helicopter, and if you try to focus on every single gauge while you're flying, like you can't get through all of them. But like, you know, I'm always looking out the windshield, 90% out the windshield. I use a 9-in-1 technique. And so 90% out the windshield, making sure I'm not running into things. And then, you know, 10% inside, looking at like three gauges that matter to me, right? Because I know if those gauges are good, if something else goes wrong, I can auto rotate it down, right? And it's the same thing in life. Like, let's just stay focused on what matters. Quit getting distracted on the static. Stop giving things more legs than, you know. Are you having a bad day? Do you have a bad life, or are you having a bad day, or are you having a bad moment?
Right.
Stop giving obviously we all have negative things and we all have obstacles in our lives, but like, don't give it more power than it really is.
Right. Than it deserves. Yeah. Yeah. There's you know, there's a great expression that I've talked about before, but it's worth mentioning again. There's an expression: the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, no matter what it is. Like, if you've had a sheltered life and the worst thing that ever happened to you is someone said something that hurt your feelings, that is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And we see that with children, right? With little kids. It's like, because they haven't had a lot of life experiences. And then we see people that have gone through hell. And those people, you know, I don't want my children to go through hell, but those people are more resilient. They're different. They have more, they've got more life experiences to judge it against. So a thing like someone being mean to them, you know, if you grow up in some hard part, some Eastern Bloc country where things are rough, like, you don't want to hear any of that bullshit. Like just an insult, that's not enough.
Yeah.
That's not the worst thing that's ever happened to them.
But we just have to, like, we have to stop trying to victimize each other, right? Like, like, look, the worst, like you said, look, the worst day of your life, the worst day of my life is no more significant than the worst day of your life. They're both the worst days of our life. And if we stop trying to out-victimize each other, see who's seen worse or done worse or been through worse, and we're just like, hey, look, like, hey, here's what I've been through.
Yeah.
Man, we can get through this.
But there's a culture in this country, unfortunately, that has arisen, within my lifetime of victim. Like there's like a currency to victimhood. Like the more things are stacked against you, the more you get to complain about those things stacked against you. The more you get to like wear it.
What becomes your identity?
Yeah,
it becomes your identity. Right?
It's a problem.
It is a problem, right? And because we reward it, right? Like there's no accountability to get through it, and like there's more reward to having that and being able to talk about it and being able to use that as your identity than there is to put the work in to get better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and a lot of times we just don't want to. That's what I'm fortunate about with my friends is my friends. I tell a story in here about Tim. You know, when I was going through my divorce and when I first moved to Austin, on it was a critical piece to me. It was kind of like the only stable, consistent place I could go to working out with Tim and Juan and Eric and John Wolf and all of them. Those guys, like, literally just, I knew if I could make it to the gym that I was going to have an hour or 2 hours, I'd be all right. And and I'll never forget, I walked into Tim and I was like, man, we were doing some workout and I'm like, I'm just fat, right? Like just probably looking for some empathy, right? And Tim looks at me and goes, yeah. And hey, check it out. People look at you as a warrior and you need to look like one. So fix it. And it's like, I didn't need him to be like, oh no, man, it's okay. You look all right. I needed somebody to sit here and tell me like, hey, yeah, you know what? You're spot on. At least we identified the problem. So now it's time to get busy fixing it.
Yeah. And that can be done.
But it doesn't feel good.
That's the point, though. That's what fat shaming's all about.
But don't you think it's offensive? But don't you think I could have sit here and been offended by that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Your feelings could have been hurt, and you could have went straight to the donut shop and been like, "Fuck him." I mean, this is one of the things we see today with a lot of people online, where they're this whole body positivity thing. It's like it's such nonsense. Like, yes, it's awful if someone's mean to you purposely and hurts your feelings and mocks you for the way you look because you're obese. Yes, that's not nice at all. But this whole idea that you love it and this is who you are and everybody should just accept it, and then pretending that it's healthy, which is really weird. Like, people will distort the reality of medical science and pretend that there's not like some real significant effect that obesity has on all parts of your body. All sorts of things go wrong if you're obese. But we send this message to people that body positivity is the way to go, that it's okay, but it's not okay. It's not. You mean, it sucks if someone can point something out and like, hey, you have let this lapse, you have treated your body in a poor way, and because of that, you have a significant problem, and you got to do something about it. Like Tim said to you, fix it. That's a reality of so many fucking people out there, and they don't ever get that speech, and they don't ever fix it. And instead, they try to come up with reasons why it's okay to be obese. And it's not okay to be obese. It's terrible. It's terrible for you. It's terrible for the people around you. It's because you're going to,
it's selfish.
You're going to get sick. You're going to get, it's going to be a real problem. People don't want to hear it. They want to think that somehow or another it's okay. And especially during the pandemic, like, my God, it's like one of the main factors for whether or not you're going to be healthy and whether or not you're going to survive this fucking thing. It's one of the main factors was obesity.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I just like, the frustrating part to me was just, I got it. Look, do whatever makes you feel safe. I'm in. Whatever. I don't care what that is. Right.
Right. Whatever it is.
Whatever you've done, just do it. Do it. I don't care. Leave me alone. And look, if you, I just never forget. I was in the grocery store and I didn't have a mask on. That was being the selfish me. And I walked in. I wasn't around anybody, but like this woman was in. I mean, she was very obese, and her cart was. I mean, I remember looking in there, and it was like just junk food, and she's like screaming at me, telling me how much of a piece of shit I am for not having my mask on, and I'm endangering everyone.
Was there a mask mandate?
I mean, they
At the time?
didn't tell me. I mean, I could go in the store without it, so like nobody mentioned it to me that worked there, right? It was only people who were. But either way, it was like, check, I got it. Okay, I'll put my mask on. You need me to put my mask on, I wasn't on an airplane.
Yeah.
I'll put my mask on, right? If that makes you feel better, I got you. But I just don't understand, like, why do we only look at parts of it? Like, okay, I'll put the mask on to protect you, but if you want to protect yourself, you should maybe start eating healthier. You should maybe make healthier decisions all the way around.
But that's hard to do. It's very easy to yell at you.
Well, again, and that's what I felt like is so many people were blaming me for their problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And look, obviously, I got it. It was real. I got it. Check. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that, like, now that let's say I don't know if I don't even know where we're at in the pandemic anymore. Like, I don't know. But can I walk around and when I see somebody who looks very, very unhealthy and I know that the science supports that, can I walk up to them and be like, hey, you don't need to be eating that?
No, because that only affects them.
Well,
The thing about you with the mask is I don't think masks, especially most of the masks that people use, unless you're wearing an N95 mask, which most people aren't, like a really snug fit N95 mask, I don't think it's really doing much. Those cloth masks and especially those surgical masks, I mean, I don't think it's doing much.
those
And
cloth masks that you wear over, like, that they, like, it's almost
Yeah.
like these, like, what are they called? Like
bandanas.
bandanas over their face?
Nonsense.
Well, yeah.
It's nonsense. And there's studies that are showing that it's nonsense. Statistically, it doesn't really have that much of an effect. Again, like I had Michael Osterholm on recently, and he's explaining why an N95 mask works, and that it has, like, what did he say? It was like electrical static. What did he say about why the things actually cling to the mask? Like, it prevents transmission because...
Electrostatic charge.
Yeah, so it's something about, like, if you are sick and you have one of those on, it actually does significantly reduce the amount of viral load comes out of your mouth. But most people aren't wearing those. They're wearing these bullshit masks. And here's the thing, man. It's like, if you want to go to a place and you want to... I mean, if there's a mask law and you're not wearing a mask, that's one thing. But if you want to go to a place and it's optional and you've got your mask on and other people don't, and you're screaming and yelling at them, like, you're especially if you're obese and you've got a cart full of shit, you're concentrating on the wrong thing.
So but again, where's the self-responsibility?
There's none. But it's so easy to point a finger at mean old Dakota running around with no mask on. Mm-hmm. You piece of shit. The fuck's wrong with you? Yeah,
I mean, what number in the country? What, as far as the world, how unhealthy? Like, we're one of the richest countries in the world. What level? Where are we at on the health scale?
That's a good question. Let's guess. Let's say
17th. Or no, let's go this. As far as unhealthy, like the unhealthiest, I bet we're number 7 or 6 or 7.
In terms of the unhealthiest country?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably top 10 unhealthiest. And as far as healthiest, I think we're probably top 20.
No? I don't think so.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably top. Yeah, there's a
bunch of
How many countries are there?
No, that's way above my pay grade.
How many countries are there?
A lot.
200?
I want to say there's close to 200.
Close to 200, something like that. I think it's in the 190s. So I would say we're...
Top 100?
For healthiness?
No way.
I want to think about people like me, so I get cocky. I go, wow, we're fucking healthy. Take a lot of vitamins, we work out every day. No, we don't. Like, a small percentage of us do. Yeah. All right. I'll say as far as obesity, we're top 10. We're top 10 the most obese country. And as far as bad health, I would say we're top 10 as far as bad health. As far as good health, probably top 30 or something. What do you got, Jamie?
I'm trying to just looking this up is a tough problem real fast because
lot of articles.
what's unhealthy. So like I
Right.
typed in unhealthy and it's like pollution.
Okay,
or,
let's say this. Oh, right. Environmental factors.
Yeah.
Let's say this. What percentage of people, like in the world?
I found that I'll just go. I found why is the USA only the 35th healthiest country in the world? So it's
All
like
right, so we're
the
top
other way,
35.
out of 169.
Okay. What about the opposite? Like, when instead of the top 35 in terms of healthy, what about in terms of sick? Like, for bad health outcomes.
Here I'm.
Like, where do we? Did you find something?
Here's the top 10 unhealthiest countries in the world. And
This is as far as healthiest. What about unhealthiest?
Yeah,
Is
so-
America one of the? That's the first question, Jamie.
20.
Is America one of the first unhealthiest countries? Okay, obesity and diabetes. For decades, the United States has had the highest obesity rate among high-income countries. Wow. High prevalence rate for obesity are seen in U.S. children and in every age group they're at. So the highest obesity rate amongst high-income countries.
Mm-hmm.
We're number one.
Click on top. We'll go top 20.
I already did.
20
We weren't in there.
We weren't?
No.
So on this one, though, but yeah, I mean,
That's what I was going through.
Oh, what is the most unhealthy country?
That's again. I was going
Ethiopia.
through that already. And once you
So
get
is
to
that
number
a-
5, it started making. You can't get to it.
Is it an environmental issue?
It's
So it's like pollution in terms of unhealthiness? Yeah.
there's a
it's-
lot going into that question.
isn't that crazy, though?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're the most obese. But that's a weird thing because we have all this access to food and a lot of it is really unhealthy and it's easy to get. Like the easiest food to get is like you could just pull into a burger place, get a milkshake, fucking sugary soda.
But we also have
fries.
access to the most healthy
Yeah.
food in the world.
But it's not as easy and it's
that's
not as
laziness.
cheap.
So it's lazy.
It's also like, you know, people don't have a lot of time, unfortunately. Like the other thing about us is the time requirements that our job takes. Like your job takes a lot of fucking time.
Is that the narrative that we've like? Is that what we just? I mean, I think you're a busy person.
Yeah, I'm a busy person, but not compared to a person that has a job that they hate. That's the thing. It's like you're busy, but you're busy doing something that robs you of your soul. And that's a lot of people. A lot of people are out there busy, but they're busy doing something that drains them.
Yeah.
When I leave here, I'm like, that was a good conversation. Dakota's cool. That was fun. That's how I'm going to feel.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel drained.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel like that was a good conversation. You know, when I do stand-up tonight, same thing.
But have you always? I mean, have you always had that?
No. When I was
And-
younger, I didn't have that.
And when you were younger, did you still work out?
Yeah.
So my point is that if you whether you want to do something or whether you don't, you'll find an excuse.
That's true. But also, the reality is, like, my struggle years were not that long. Like, like while I was struggling and while I was working on, I was young. I had tons of energy. I was driven, and I had a plan, or I wanted to get somewhere. I wanted to have success, and fortunately, it came true. And I did have success, and I did do all that stuff. But the people that haven't and they're obese now, they have a bunch of shit going on. First of all, they have low energy levels. It's very difficult to get something done when you have low energy levels. It's so hard because whatever motivation I need, I mean, I'm kind of on autopilot now. Like when I get up in the morning, like I know I'm going to work out. It's not like whether or not I can. Oh, maybe I'll blow it off today. I fucking never say that. I get in there. I always work out. So it's not like whether or not it's going to get done. It's going to get done.
Yep.
It's just, it's a part of, it's brushing my teeth. It's taking a shit. It's normal.
But everything's
I go out there.
everything's habitual.
It is. But but my point is, like, I have momentum and I have health, right? So I'm fit. I eat right. I take a lot of vitamins. I'm doing all the right things in that regard. So I have the energy to go out there and work out. For obese people, it's so fucking hard because your body's drained.
But you're telling me, do you think that majority these people we're talking about, how much time do you think they spend on their phones?
They spend a lot of times on the phones, but that's easy to do.
Well,
The thing, what I'm saying is like, it's not as easy for me. This is just my own personal realization, my understanding of like the human body. When you're really fat, it's very hard to get going. It's very hard. Their bodies are fucked up. Like they don't have the energy to do it. And that's just a reality of what it means to be an obese person. So what they have to do is force themselves. They don't have like this feeling like, I can't wait to get to the gym. That feeling is not there. Their feeling is, okay, I know that this is a process. It's a long, brutal process, but I must begin it, and it must be a part of every day. And that's the only way I'm going to get out of this hole that I've dug.
I mean, I don't wake up and have that, and I work out 6 days a week. And I built a gym on my property, like 100 yards from my house. And I still have to fight myself to get up to go work out at it, right? I can it's a choice. It's a choice.
Goggins talks about it.
That's what his priority is.
Who the fuck has more discipline than Goggins? He goes, sometimes I see my shoes, I stare at those motherfuckers for a half an hour. I could see him in his house angry, looking at his sneakers.
And then I put him on and I say, stay hard.
Yeah, stay hard,
stay hard, motherfucker.
Dude, he sends me some of the most hilarious text messages.
My favorite video of him is, obviously he's running, right?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I don't know if he ever sleeps, but he's running and he's like, I'm out here and somebody just pulled up next to me. It's 100% humidity and it's whatever degrees. And he's like, and he looked at me and he said, why are you here? Or why are you running or something?
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, 'cause you're fucking not.
Well, he needs haters. He likes haters. He does. He enjoys them.
He said, 'cause you're fucking not.
He likes lazy people and he likes haters because they motivate him.
Yeah.
He's in a constant war, like in his mind against weakness, against his own weakness, against other people's weakness.
Isn't that what I was talking? I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like like where I just talk to myself different.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm not...
That's what I respond to.
I respect the fuck out of that dude, and I love him to death, but I don't think his mindset's healthy. I mean, he's never at peace.
Maybe.
He's never at peace.
Maybe... I mean, it's probably not healthy if he was going to be like a youth pastor, but I mean, for him to achieve the goals he wants, I mean, he's doing
not
it.
just achieve the goals he wants, but here's what's maybe as important with him is that Goggins inspires so many people to action. There's so many people that watch his videos and they go, that is an exceptional human being. So exceptional.
But it's because he's not like this. He's not trying to be well-groomed.
Right.
He's not trying to like worry about offending people. Like David Goggins is so clear that he doesn't give a fuck what you think about him.
Yeah.
And whether you're watching his video or not, he's going to still be getting after it.
Yeah, it's real too. That his attitude about those things is 100% real.
I've never met him.
Oh, really?
No, I'd love David Goggins, but he's like, I watch his videos and I just like, I wish I could be that.
I would love to introduce you to him. You'd love him. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun too. You would think that he's like, stay hard all the time, like constantly, but no, he laughs a lot. He's a fun guy. He's always working out, right? So he's always like drained of all the bullshit that a lot of people carry around with them. Mm-hmm. A lot of people carry around some unnecessary bullshit that they could get rid of with a hard workout.
Yeah, a hard workout, like, the things, if you ever notice, like the things that bother you, like that are on your mind before you start working out versus when you're done. Totally
different.
You got a totally different perspective.
Totally different life. It's like life is okay. Like a fucking brutal workout. After it's over, you're like, whew.
Yeah.
I'm going to be all right. Yeah, it's therapy.
Honestly, that wasn't that big of a deal.
It's not a big of a deal. It's like that's a form of therapy. And it's also a form of therapy that requires you to engage and to work. And I think that is just as much an important aspect of it as anything, is that you're forcing yourself to do something that's very difficult. And through that, you get this alleviation of anxiety and stress and all the good stuff, and it's great for your body. But also, it's great for your mind, because your mind did the work. Mm-hmm. You made your mind is what tells your body what the fuck to do. My friend John Joseph, he's the lead singer of the Cro-Mags, and he's done a shit ton of triathlons and a bunch of Ironmans. And one of the things that I love about what he loves about triathlons and Ironman, he says, because your mind has to tell your body who the fuck the boss is.
Yeah.
You know? Your mind. Because your body's like, oh, this is bullshit, let's quit. And your mind's like, fuck you. Keep going. Your mind can control the body.
That's what I love.
Yeah.
I love those workouts where it's just like, anybody could do it. And you know what? You could take off. Like, I try to do everything, but like these workouts I'm talking about for time, right? Because, you know, it's like you can take off because you can get through anything. You can pace yourself, you know, all these things. And for me, I like to get to that dark place, and I like to just get in there, and I just like to, you know, for me, I'm not going to go talk. Like, I'm not very good at talking to people about my problems. I feel like I'm inconveniencing them, and then when I verbalize them, they're not that big. So, you know, so for me, like, this is kind of like my time to my counseling session with myself where I don't have to say anything. And at the end of it, I come out and I feel better, you know, but I'm physically beat. I'm mentally, I love just getting to that dark place where it's just like, oh yeah, this is where I like it. And I come out of it and I'm like, done. I'm ready to get after it again. Like, I'm relieved, you know. But sometimes I have to get in there. I just have to push myself harder and just be like, no, like I'm gonna quit on my terms.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop on my terms, not when my body gets tired. I'm gonna stop when I say I'm tired.
Yeah. Well, I think with a lot of people, what's going on is society has created these tensions and these problems that our body doesn't totally understand. And I think our body thinks of conflicts as being danger to our body, like physically dangerous conflicts. That's what I think our body thinks of conflicts, of anything that you've got that's going on that's giving you stress. Our body thinks we're going to have to go to war. Like, you're going to have to fight off a neighboring tribe. You're going to have to fight off a predator. There's going to be, with the way we evolved as an intelligent being, the way we got to today is we had to fight off a lot of shit. And so your body is programmed to fight off a lot of shit. Now all of a sudden you get to this place in 2022 where you're not really fighting anything off, but you have those same feelings. And I think until you wreck your body and just tax it out, it can't think rationally. I think all those people that have like major anxiety and major problems and don't have a rigorous workout schedule, I think they do themselves a disservice because I don't think you're able to think as clearly.
Do you think that, like, I mean, how many people do you think are out there that have never been punched in the mouth?
A lot.
And go back every generation, right? Like my dad's generation, and then
they all got punched.
And don't you think? Because like,
yeah.
And don't you think, like, so I believe the biggest issue in just America, just talk America, is there's no accountability, right? But there is no accountability without conflict. And everybody's so scared of conflict because, like, now it's to the point to where I can talk shit to you over text.
Yes.
You can't punch me in the mouth over text, right?
Exactly.
And so, like, there's no accountability, and we've dodged all this. I mean, I remember, like, when I was in high school, I mean, we would fight, and then we were friends the next day, and I mean, you know, that's how it was. And now it's like, it's just crazy shit, right? But it's like, no, there's no accountability. And
it's also we're the same thing. We're the same animal that we were your dad's generation, your grandpa's generation. We're the same creature, but now we have different rules, and those rules aren't necessarily compatible with the way our body's set up.
No, I mean, we're built to fight.
Yeah, well, it's not whether or not we're built to fight. We're accustomed to it in our lives.
Yeah.
It's a part of what got us here to 2022.
Yeah. And
this is how the human race is here. It's not like we just laid down whatever conflict came, because we'd all be dead.
But in how many times? So what happens? You know, like, you take these generations as we, you know, we're scared of conflict. Life is conflict.
There's a lot of conflict in life.
There's a lot of, like,
and there's a lot of lessons that you learn through conflict.
Well, exactly. And it's like, what's going to happen when, you know, God forbid that this country in two more generations, somebody comes here that wants conflict.
The real fear is that happens, right? Or the real fear is the conflict comes now, and we're not prepared for it. And by the time we adjust, it's too late.
Yep.
I mean, that's the issue, is what would it take to snap America back into a position where we value physical resiliency, we value discipline, we value, and it's a common thing. It's common that people exercise and are fit. I mean, imagine what you do and imagine what I do and what Jocko does and Tim Kennedy does. Imagine if the whole country adopted a way of life where you eat healthy, you train almost every day, and you think about your problems, you think about accountability, you think about your personality, you think about interpersonal conflicts you've been in with friends or with coworkers or what have you, and you try to do better constantly. We'd be a infinitely better country. That's infinitely better.
It's not good for business though.
Why isn't it good for business? You buy things, I buy things.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
what's business?
When you're not depressed and when you're not, when you don't have anxiety, when you feel better and you have more energy, and I mean, listen, I just
you mean like pharmaceutical business?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that everything goes back to, everything goes back convenience and things like that. I mean, obviously it's nice, but the more people rely on other like these other things to do in their daily life, there's more money to be made there, right?
Yeah.
And I just think it's just like, I don't know. I mean, you can't tell people, hey, look, like, yeah. I mean, it's just so tough right now, and it's like so tough because like I'm raising my daughters in this, and it's like, what is it going to look like for them?
Well, it's definitely different than it was for us, but I'm wondering, if we're going to figure this out the way we figured out every other generation, and learn from the mistakes of the past generations and get better at it. I'm still optimistic, although I do see a lot of fucking really troubling shit with the way people are handling stuff in society today. I mean,
look, America, we're gonna be fine. Like
allegedly.
No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. I'll put everything on it. We'll be fine. Yeah, I mean, for sure.
You're not worried about China or Russia or any of this crazy stuff? You don't think like Putin is capable of like launching a nuke?
No. I mean, where is he going to launch it? To us?
I think it's possible that there could come a time where Putin is experiencing so much pushback that he decides to go nuclear.
So it's kind of like here, right? Like, it's, and Milley even admitted this.
Who did?
General Milley.
Yeah.
Joint Chiefs of Staff.
What did he say?
When he told China that he would call them before he nuked,
that was when he was talking about Trump.
Yeah. So,
right?
So again, if Putin himself was the only person that had to launch that nuke, maybe. But there's still if Putin launches a nuke on us, what's going to happen right behind it? Everybody in Russia is about to suffer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that that aspect is, that's why North Korea ain't rocked a nuke, right? These nukes, I just don't think, and maybe I'm just being optimistic. I just don't think that, I think people will do things whenever they're sure that it's not going to affect them. But I think that the humanization factor of, I'm going to push this, I'm going to support, and I'm going to have to push this nuke button or whatever it is, key or whatever. And but I also know that as soon as I do that, I'm going to get the first hit, but my family's going to suffer and everybody here's going to suffer. I just, again, they're worried about him dropping nukes inside of Ukraine. Well,
what he said, and this is where it gets disturbing, what he said is that if anybody supports Ukraine and, the idea of NATO moves weapons into Ukraine and points them at Russia, I believe his quote was something to the nature of, they will face horrors the likes of which the world has never seen.
I mean, so is he committing suicide?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
look, how old is he? How old is he?
Well, I mean, but that's something.
But how old is he?
How old's Putin?
Is he 70?
60, 70, yeah, he's probably
70.
70? 69?
69. Okay, so who knows what his health is like? Who knows how much time he's got left? I mean, when you got a guy who's a dictator.
But then you got people under him who have to push the button.
How does that work over there? Do they have a similar situation?
I mean, somebody has to do it.
Right.
I mean, he's
not doing it.
I mean, it ain't like a rifle.
But if he orders the first, I mean, hasn't he given them orders to get close, to get ready? Hasn't he put some sort of a nuclear? What was his order that he gave out?
Up the level of readiness or whatever. I don't know.
Right. What does that mean?
I mean, I don't, maybe they point them. I don't know. Maybe they get them aimed in the right direction.
But listen, the human race has nuked countries. We have. Well, not us, obviously. It was before our time.
We're the only ones.
Well, that's enough. It's just like, listen, it's not that long ago. I mean, it seems like a long time ago, 1947. But if you look at in terms of like the overall time that humans have been on this planet, that's pretty recent.
But if
you look at Roman history or Greek history, like a 50-year, 60-year, 70-year gap in between something is not much.
But you also had, we also had the support. Like nobody, this had affected everybody.
Right.
And nobody, we didn't worry about somebody rocking a nuke back at us.
We didn't know if they had it, right?
So now we know everybody who's got the nukes.
Yeah.
And everybody knows who's got them, who's got what. I mean, it's all obvious.
But you know that during the 60s, there was some generals that were legitimately thinking about launching nukes against Russia, against China, against Cuba. There was real talk about this. That's what the whole Dr. Strangelove movie is about. We actually talked about it yesterday. It really was based on real people that had these ideas and thought that they were actually going to wind up doing that.
I mean, look, anybody can do anything. People can do anything. I just don't think that, maybe I just don't see, when they're talking about nukes inside of Ukraine right now, you talk about Putin literally losing it. He's done. If he drops a nuke 100%, he's done.
Is he, though? Because what if he says, I'm going to keep doing this unless you guys back the fuck off, but I did it once.
So what do you think?
What happens then? But honestly, what happens then? Because then if we go to war, then everybody dies, right? If we just launch missiles at him and he launches missiles at the United States, mutually assured destruction, right? You think if one nuclear bomb goes off somewhere, that would automatically mean a nuclear war, or do you think people would try to still negotiate?
Depends on where he sends it.
Right.
So do you think for 1 second, and I don't know, these are legit questions, right? Do you feel like he's going to drop it in Ukraine while all of his people are there, and that his own people aren't going to turn on him and be like, what the fuck?
I don't know. I feel like if he pulls out of Ukraine, pulls the troops out of Ukraine, and then nukes it, it sounds crazy. I don't think. Look, obviously, I'm not a fucking.
Obviously, if he's pulling troops
military
out of,
analyst, I'm not a person who really.
Yeah, me either.
But what I'm saying is, who the fuck thought that we were going to have a hot war where Russia invades Ukraine with tanks and jets and they're shooting missiles into apartment buildings? That's fucking crazy. And nobody thought that was going to happen just a few months ago. And now it's real.
Yeah. Again, I'm with you. We went in. We've gone into Iraq. You know what I mean. I don't see him going nuclear, and I just don't see.
I don't see it, but it's possible.
Well, anything's possible.
But that's the thing. It's it's not just possible. We're in a war. He's in a war right now. There's a real war. Ukraine and Russia are in a real war. That scares the fuck out of me, man.
China is the one that scares me.
That scares me too.
China scares me. I think Russia. I think Russia's kind of showed their hands, right? Russia's kind of been to my generation, the guy in the bar that you walk into, you've never seen him fight, but everybody's like, oh, don't mess with that guy, right? Don't ever even mess with him, right? Everybody's been like, well, why? Oh, he's so badass. Mm-hmm. And I think Putin's more screwed because he's kind of showed that. If he can't take on Ukraine, he better not try to come to anybody else. Unless he's going nuclear.
Use nuclear.
Well, again,
yeah, that's the thing that's fucked. Is
but I don't think China would even support him going nuclear.
Do they have to? Look, if he's going nuclear, it's a suicide mission, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, you gotta always be afraid of someone who is a dictator, who has ultimate power, who's also a psychopath. And that seems to be all those boxes get checked in this scenario.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I don't know, man.
But
like I want the world to be a better place than it was before, and it just there's a real possibility that it won't be. You know, the thing that every civilization's worried about, like when you talk about the possibility of the advancement of the human race, the one big dilemma is if we don't blow ourselves up. That comes up all the time. Whenever people talk about the future, like what is the world going to be like in 1,000,000 years if we don't blow ourselves up? That's what they always say. Like, will we get to a point where there is peace and harmony and we no longer have war?
Well,
no more conflict.
No.
Impossible?
Yeah.
Why? Just nature of human beings?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the nature of human beings, right? I mean, there's just no chance. There's no chance of us getting to a place to where there's no war.
Yeah.
There's too much. Again, I said it earlier. There's too much money to be made on it, right? And look, and think about, there's too much money to be made on it. And you don't think that Putin likes making money?
I think
you think that's not a factor?
You know how much money he has?
Well, I mean,
they say he has fucking untold billions of dollars. You know?
But I just don't think that, like, I just don't see. I don't know. I mean, again, the last person on the face of the planet that needs to be talking military strategy is probably me.
I'm right next to you.
So, but it's. I mean,
we're both last in line.
It's fun to talk about it.
It is.
But I just don't see. Unless he's suicidal, I don't see.
I would hate to have this conversation or go back and listen to this conversation a year from now after a nuclear bomb's gone off, and we're like, wow, we didn't even see it coming. I'm just saying that the real fear that people have about civilizations not reaching their full potential is natural disasters or self-destruction.
Do you ever see, and again, I don't know, I'm just asking a question. Do you ever see somebody, I mean, somebody who's willing, because, like, suicidal, sometimes, I don't know, suicidal people, they usually just hurt themselves sometimes, right? I mean, obviously there's a difference.
I don't think it's just suicidal. It's
what do
like
you think
you want to leave your mark. Like, everyone's afraid of that. That was the whole plot of that Stephen King book. The fuck was that book? They made it into a movie with Christopher Walken, The Dead Zone. There was a guy who could see the future, and there was a guy who was running for president, and he could see that this guy who was running for president was going to launch the nukes, and that launching those nukes was going to cement their name into history, which I think for some people is a powerful motivating factor, believe it or not.
I mean, history gets changed up all the time, so I wouldn't bet on that.
Yeah, but especially as you're getting older, if you, like, what keeps a guy going when you're 69, you've been running Russia for decades, and you have untold billions of dollars? Like, what keeps a guy going? Like,
I hope that, like, again, my friends, my family, still being able to, enjoy my kids, right? Like, enjoy my grandkids.
Yeah, but you're not a dictator.
Well,
I think we have to think in terms of, like, dictators, like homicidal dictators. There's a lot of dictators that they've done horrific genocidal things. They're ruthless people.
I mean, but, if that's the case, we're going to have to be worrying about Iran.
Yeah.
North Korea.
Yep.
Like, at the point that dude gets sick, like, I could see it on, like, if Putin got diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Yes, but that's the thing. Like, what if he has one? Did you see the podcast that I did with Yeonmi Park?
Mm-mm.
She was a woman who escaped North Korea.
She escaped over there.
Bro.
Yeah.
You listen to her account of what North Korea was like and growing up there. It's horrific. It's terrifying. And the fact this guy has complete control of his population through just complete fear. They're so tiny over there. She was talking to me about how little everybody is, and she's so frail. She's like, when you like shake her hand, like everything is so small. Her bones are so small, and you realize, like, she didn't get enough food. Like,
yeah.
That's why everybody's so small over there. They're fucking starving.
And how do you fix it?
How do you fix it? He keeps that population terrified and under control. And that's the thing is, it's like that's happening right now in 2022. And one of the things about us is we're so, like, if someone lives in a wonderful, really safe neighborhood and you just think this is the world, The world is like my neighborhood because that's all I experience. And that's your point of reference. Your point of reference is this great neighborhood that you live in where everything's safe and you never really have to worry about anything. At the same time, there's places in the world like, what was that? There was Shane Smith from Vice was telling us about this one city that has the most murders. I think it was in Pakistan. It's one city where there's more like murders and more hits. Like, you know, like people pay people, like it's a shockingly low amount of money to commit murder. And they just have them constantly, all the time. And it's just the reality of living there. I think Karachi, was that where it was?
But we have all these things in America.
What's the murder capital of the world, Jamie? Yeah, we do, but it's small places, right? Like Southside Chicago.
When I typed in city in the world with the most murders, top 3 were all in Mexico.
Whoa, that's now, right?
Yeah, I mean, so.
Yeah.
But, you know, we like, yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. Sometimes I do get frustrated. I mean, I love this country. I mean, I do believe we're the greatest country on the face of the planet. I mean, I believe that with everything I have. But sometimes we do think we're better, or like we look at others and we're kind of doing the same shit sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, just I don't know. It's a good for me, good for thee, but not for me kind of mentality sometimes. And I just.
We were pulling up a chart the other day of the amount of drone strikes that have gone on while the Ukraine thing is happening, that the United States is participating in. It's pretty fucked. You know, it's pretty fucked. Like, there's a lot of drone strikes going on right now all over the world that the United States participates in.
Because you're thoughtful on this, so I want to know, or you're always thoughtful, but do you think, because I keep hearing this, do you think that this issue that's going on in Ukraine, do you think it would have happened with Donald Trump?
I don't know why it's happening, so I can't answer that. I don't know what Trump would have done differently. It would just be pure speculation. The people that want to think that Trump was a better leader want to think that, the Ukrainians wouldn't, or the Russians wouldn't fuck with Trump. He's the only guy that Russia hasn't done any invasions while during his 4 years in office, but that could just be luck.
But don't you think it's kind of weird? And again, like I want to make this clear, I don't care either way, just like on either one. But don't you think it's kind of weird that like they tried to pin Russia on Trump and Biden on Ukraine before any of this broke out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the Russia-Trump thing was crazy because they got into his servers. They hired people to hack into their campaign while he was president. They hacked into the computers. They planted evidence that tried to implicate him in the shady dealings with Russia. Like, it wasn't just that.
Who's them?
They wanted the Clinton campaign. It wasn't just that they were spying on him. It was that they were, like, let's Google that.
And so don't
Google what has been proven about who was it that it came up with the information.
And it just came out, and like 2 weeks later, you got this going on.
Yeah, very quickly.
And don't you think it's kind of crazy? Like, I mean, because
people weren't upset about it. That's what's the most fucked up. Like, the Democrats weren't freaking out. They weren't saying, "Wait a minute, this is outside of the law. This is a horrific."
I mean, look at what we
violation of our laws and our boundaries of our ethics, what we think should be done and not done by someone who's a leader. You want to find people who are actually committing crimes, not pin crimes on people.
But again, like, you just don't think, like, it's just so weird. And I don't know if there's any correlation to it, but it's just so weird that, like, they were trying to plant stuff on Trump with Russia.
Right.
And we know for a fact that Hunter Biden was taking shit tons of money from Ukraine.
Well, it's from a company in Ukraine, right?
Well, of course.
But that's the question: is like, does that company represent the government, or is that company is it just like Chevrolet, just a corrupt? I mean, not that Chevy's corrupt, but you know what I mean, just a company.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know what, but seems to be for sure some sort of shady dealings going on when he was getting all that money, and it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, maybe it's just a coincidence.
Could be. What was the? Are you looking? Okay.
And then it's like, you see that, and it's just.
I think they fucking all talk to foreign leaders. They do whatever the fuck they can if they think it's going to help their career, it's going to help their campaign, it's going to help them get over on their rivals. There's a lot of that going on. And I think that's one of the reasons why Trump ran in the first place is because he was on the other side of that. Like, he had to pay the Clintons to come to his wedding. It's that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Was it his wedding or is it someone else's wedding? Is what his daughter's wedding?
No,
is this the thing?
What you need to know about the John Durham filing that Trump world is fuming over, and what is this business? Dude,
I'm trying to ask if this is even what we were talking about, so we can dig into the right story.
Yeah, it's the Durham filing.
So even looking into this now, depending on what link I click, it's
what link you click?
Link I click, it's filled with bias. So like,
okay, well, this is definitely a biased website.
Yeah, it's just
they're biased towards things being inflamed.
So where should I go then?
That's a good question.
Because I've typed in what has been proven.
Durham, what is what's a good way to look at this?
None of them.
Some of them have to be accurate.
Do they?
What we know about the Durham probe. Hillary Clinton's responsibility for the Durham probe.
Who's going to have written that unbiased article to find?
I don't know. What do you got anything that's going both ways?
I was starting to read through that, so I can, if you give me another minute or two.
Yeah,
okay.
It's just I don't know. It's just so, like, when you start looking at
it's dirty. Like, that is Watergate, right? Wasn't that Watergate? Wasn't they were spying? I mean, that was the whole reason why Dick Nixon got out of office, because he was fucking spying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not supposed to do that.
But now it's like, I don't know, but it's just like we talked about in those relationships. Like, you do something, and then oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. Like, it's like the worst thing ever, and then it just happens over and over, and you kind of just get numb to it, right?
Yes.
And it's like with politics now,
yes.
It's like I don't know what you could do to get for it to be like, oh my gosh, right? Like I mean, can you imagine if Bill Clinton, if he got a blowjob today in the White House,
it'd be nothing.
He's not getting impeached. No chance. Like, they would probably raise him up as a hero.
Yeah, they would come up with some reason why, he, was just a hypersexual individual who was tempted by his genetics, and it's not his fault,
I got one thing that might already be a mistake that's in this. There was a filing that happened last week that's gotten this back in the news.
Right.
When the initial spying happened on Trump, wasn't it because of the Obamas? Like, Obama was in office and they were spying on the candidates.
I think that was the original. That was the original part.
So according to this, the New York Times says that they changed that. Like, I don't know who like the Trump team, I guess. They were initially saying it was the Obamas, and now they're saying it was the Clintons team that was doing the spying.
Right, but maybe they thought it was the Obama. They knew it was the Democrats, perhaps, and then we thought it was the people that were in power, and it turns out it's not the people in power. It was Clinton, because she was running against Trump. I mean, that doesn't necessarily...
That doesn't make sense, though, because that means that she's in control of the FBI, or whoever's doing that. And
well, she was a secretary. She wasn't just a candidate.
She was.
She wasn't.
I mean, I don't think...
She was a secretary of state.
You have to give that up, though, to become the candidate.
Yeah, but the connections that she had with those people if she is the favorite to win the presidency, and she was, the connections that she had with those people.
The only question you got to ask in this whole thing is, do you think Obama knew? Yeah.
I think he knows everything.
Well, of course.
But he also fucking hated the idea of Trump being president. He thought Trump was, a scoundrel. I mean, you remember that fucking White House press conference dinner? It was kind of hilarious, where he says to Trump, "I'm one thing you'll never be, President of the United States." Like, oh my God, you got it in that guy's craw. That's probably why he became the president.
Oh, for sure.
Probably stuck in his fucking head. He's like, "I'll show you, motherfucker."
Yeah.
And the thing that scares me is that whether you like Trump or hate him, he polarizes the country. Mm-hmm. Like, he's not a Republican like Ron DeSantis. I think there's a lot of people who don't like Ron DeSantis, but he's not polarizing the way Trump is. I mean, he's still polarizing, but he's not. People don't fucking hate him in the same way that they hate Trump. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, Trump was exhausting.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's constantly in arguments and fights with people and going after them, and Rosie O'Donnell and girls he banged and all the crazy things to concentrate on. You know, it's like, God, man.
I mean, the stuff
You know?
he said.
Oh my God, it was hilarious.
I mean-
Look, if he wasn't the president and he wasn't a real threat, that's the thing that really fucked him. Because before that, the guy was loved.
Yeah.
He was crazy, and a lot of people hated him, but for the most part, he was loved.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: like under Trump, I felt like the country was safe. Like, you know,
I wish I knew that was true.
I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but like I felt like that. You know what? I'll say this: I think just the unknown factor about him made America safer because enemies did not want to even mess with him.
Well, he's definitely wild.
The
Like when
wild
he
card
said
factor.
To Kim Jong-un, he called him Little Rocket Man. He said, we have a nuclear button too, and our nuclear buttons are way better.
Here's the other side, I guess.
What does it say? Pavlich, this is The Hill. Katie Pavlich says it was always spying. So what does this mean here?
It kind of just goes into the story about what starts at the beginning. I think like April 10th, 2019. This is what was said. It goes into...
Okay,
where we're at now.
here's the quote here. It says, for the same reason we're worried about foreign influence in elections, we want to make sure that during the elections, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal, Barr testified. Spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur. The question is whether it was adequately predicated. I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I need to explore that. I think it's my obligation. Congress is usually very concerned about intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies staying in their proper lane, and I want to make sure that happened. We have a lot of rules about that. Well, we know that there was a lot of the intelligence agencies did not fucking like Trump, and he went to war with those people, which is insane. It's just fucked. We're fucked. It's a lot of mess.
We're fucked.
It's a lot of mess. It's a lot of mess, you know. And then where are we going to be in 2024? 2024, because he's running again. So here we are, 2022. That
You
means
really think he's going to run again?
100%. Yeah, I think so. Don't you think so? He just announced it at CPAC.
I guess.
I mean,
Nothing surprised. What would surprise you? Like tomorrow, you wake up. What could surprise you at this point?
that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean-
Everything's so aliens.
Would that really surprise you? I mean, like,
Yes,
no,
that would be a surprise.
you don't think?
I'd be like, wow. But I mean, I wouldn't even know whether I'd believe it, because like if you really wanted to fuck with people, look, I think that a lot of what we're looking at when we're looking at UFOs, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, I think a lot of it is these classified government projects. I think they probably have classified propulsion systems that maybe don't even use people. They're probably just drones. But I think they have capabilities that we don't understand yet in terms of like the general public. And they've been working on these sort of different types of propulsion, magnetic propulsion systems. These have been theoretical for a long time. And then this thing that Bob Lazar supposedly worked on way back in the late 80s at Area S4, the way he described it is exactly the way these things are moving. The way, you know, that you see these crafts move, like the one that was observed by Commander David Fravor, the one that was observed by a lot of these other guys that are these Air Force folks that are catching these objects moving at these insane rates of speed.
Underwater.
Yeah, they're going from ground to water, from sky to water, rather. Yeah, they don't know what the fuck is going on. But if they're working on these things, it kind of makes sense. Because they're always happening. Like this one, here's one. The fucking one that was in San Diego, well, why would it be in San Diego? Well, why wouldn't it be? That's where all the fucking military bases are. There's so much military in San Diego. If you were going to work on some top secret classified shit, you'd have to be near bases, right? Wouldn't you? You'd want to do it there. That's where they would do it.
Yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know
What
either.
What if we're all like, what if we're all getting played? Like, what if the aliens are doing all this to us? Like, what?
I don't think that's happening. I think we're too stupid.
What?
I think it's pretty clear that we're doing it to ourselves through corruption. I mean, and what we've done in the United States is we have allowed money to get into politics. We've allowed money to get
military.
into yes, a lot of it. I mean, that was what Eisenhower warned about when he was leaving office. I mean, that speech when he warns about the dangers of the military-industrial complex, that is a terrifying speech, because that was a guy who knew. You know, he knew exactly what was going on behind the scenes, and he chose to take the time when he's leaving office to warn about a machine that wants to go to war, that wants to find reasons to go to war to profit, and that we know that that's real.
And that's why that's why we stayed in Afghanistan and Iraq so long.
I'm sure it had a factor, right?
Yeah.
And then there's people that think we should have stayed there indefinitely.
You don't think for a second, for why? Why? If the Taliban had thought that we were going to come occupy them for 20 years, they would have gave over Osama bin Laden on September 12th.
You think so?
Yeah, they didn't want us there. You know what I mean? They could have
Right.
kept going on about business as usual. And I just, no, I mean, we were there. And, even though this administration completely fucked this whole pullout up, every other administration had the same opportunity to pull us out, but they didn't.
Right.
And
Well, I think they were warned that this is how it was going to go down, right?
yeah, and so it's I'm glad we're out. I mean,
Would have been nice if we didn't give them all those weapons, though, right?
well, why do you think we left them there? Because then we got to build more.
Oh.
Come on. Are
Ooh.
you kidding me?
I honestly didn't even think of that.
Of course.
Of course.
Guess what? All these weapon systems, all this military gear. Well, now we'll have to build the next gen because they've got it now, right?
Oof.
Oh,
That's like a modern version of that Smedley Butler. You know that piece that guy wrote, "War's a Racket." Did you ever read that?
but Smedley Butler, I think he was a Medal of Honor recipient.
Yeah, and it was in the 1930s, I believe. This was after World War I. I think it was 33 he wrote this. It was called War is a Racket. And this is a guy that had served overseas and thought what he was doing, like you could pull it up, Jamie, because it's kind of interesting. He was saying that what he thought he was doing was just protecting the world for bankers and different people. War is a Racket. 1935, Smedley Butler.
He got two Medal of Honors.
Yeah.
Look at that dude. He's a badass.
Let's give this speech about. Let's see if you can find it's not a long thing to read, but it's essentially.
I'm sure it would be in that Wikipedia at the top.
Yeah, it should be.
If you'll just go down to
It should be available to read.
right.
Oh yeah. Well, essentially, what he said though was that he realized that. Here it goes. Perfect. War is a racket. It always has been. It's possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which profits are reckoned in dollars and losses in lives. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it's about. It's conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many. Out of war, a few people make huge fortunes.
Well-
He said, I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the national city bank boys to collect revenues in. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909 to 1912. Where have I heard that name before? I bought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar business interest in 1916. In China, I helped see to it that Standard Oil went its way unmolested. I mean, he was writing about this in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago.
We've seen a lot of rackets lately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why that I remember reading that. I think the first time I read it was in the 90s. I was like, wow, like this is crazy. This guy wrote about this in the 1930s. Like you would.
And this won't be fixed until our leaders can't be like the leaders of this country. The servants they don't go up there and become richer when they come home.
And all of them do.
All of them do. Like, you should not be able to have either blind trust is the lenient part of it when you have stocks and you're in those positions. But I don't think you should be able to have stocks. You shouldn't, like, you should have to go up there and purely you're here to serve.
Well, you get a lot less people wanting that fucking job.
Well, I mean, but you also might be able to get more relevant people to what the everyday citizen lives.
I think the real problem is once it's already established the way it is now, where there is a lot of financial influence, where they do contribute to the campaigns, where they do have special interest groups, where they do have these people that help them get into office and they're beholden to them once they get in there. And then you have people like Nancy Pelosi that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and they make $200,000 a year. And you're like, what?
But she makes that money based off the information she fucking knows.
Which is crazy.
But it's just like Obamacare was a perfect example. Everybody else was forced to get it except them. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy that, that they can have information. So the shit that they can do, they're not held accountable if they know insider. Like, go look at I did a podcast on the American Party, or me and Dan did a podcast on the American Party podcast about trading within the House and all that.
Oh, you see the list of all the people that trade? It's like, wow.
And then what you look at is you look at like, oh, they invested in Raytheon or whatever, and then they knew that 3 days later they were going to vote on a contract that was going to go to them.
And it jumps their profits up. It raises their stock price up.
It's crazy.
It's crazy that it's legal.
It's crazy it's legal because if you were a person on Wall Street and you did something like that,
you go to jail.
You're going to jail.
I know. It's nuts.
How?
It's a crazy loophole. But it's like you were talking about before, that we're just accustomed to it. We get numb to it. Like, oh, what are you going to do? And that's what they rely on.
That's what they rely on. It's crazy that it's okay. And but at what point do you hold them accountable, right? Like, that's the hard part.
What is it going to take for it to change? And how is it going to change? And what's going to be the method?
Well, you start by first off being a good individual and doing the right thing. And then you do that in your home and you start raising good, decent, moral children. And then you expand that expands the community, and then it just expands. That's the only way to fix it. You don't fix it. You can't fix it by going up there and a coup or whatever.
You have to fix everybody.
You have to start with yourself.
Yeah.
That's reality. And the way forward.
On that, the way forward. The book, it's out today, right now. Robert O'Neill, Dakota Meyer. Dakota, you're a bad motherfucker.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you,
It was
brother.
good seeing you.
Good seeing you, too. All right. Bye, everybody.